Hey, what's up, everybody? It is October 29th, 8 o'clock p.m. I almost forgot what time it was. But you know what time is it? It is. It's time for another class session with your faculty at the Gaming Academy. It is your headmaster. It is I, GQAzndood. How are you? How is everybody? Welcome to our little stock room here at the Gaming Academy in little old town Bellingham, Washington. So appreciate you if you guys are here. As if it's your first time on the show, awesome. Good to have you. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram at GQAzndood or GQAzn where we cover all things video game related from all ages. And so, as always, we got people here. We got people in the faculty coming to join us, and we also have a guest. And my guest, we've been friends for quite some time, and it's good to have a little bit of different, perspective on certain things. So, and if you're interested in coming to the show, drop me a DM on X. This way, we can, see if we can arrange something. So, with that said, let's move on to our hosts for our faculty for tonight. You know, let's see here. Which one should I introduce first? Which one's your favorite, chat? Just put it on the chat there. Anyway, you know him, my favorite, the man on the street, Blazing Ace Nelson. What up, dude?
What's good, class? Glad to see you all here. Hey, this past week has been, well, especially the last couple days has been kind of nuts, and I'm looking forward to letting y'all know what's going down.
Oh yeah, for sure. It is like the end of October. Weird things happen at end of October, so hopefully not too weird.
Mhm.
But it's
Speaking of
okay.
speaking of weird things happening at the end of October, I wonder if Thrillingham is still going on this year.
That's right, right. So if you're in our little part of the state here, Washington State, we do a thing called Thrillingham every Halloween where they do Thriller and there's cosplay. It's super fun. One one time they may have done a flash mob of Gangnam Style, which we'll link to the chat later, and hopefully you guys will appreciate that. But another thing to appreciate is our third man on the court here, up in the ivory tower of what's the name of the city in Cyberpunk? I don't remember.
Oh,
That's a good trivia question. But with that
isn't
said,
it Night City? Yeah, Night City.
Night City. Well, at the top of the tower, Night City, we got ourselves my man, Nickus.
The top of Arasaka Tower, please.
Arasaka Tower. My bad.
In Night City. Come on, you didn't know that right off the top of your head.
You know what? I don't have a powerful computer to play that game, so I can't. I couldn't
I'm
do
a
it.
potato.
Yeah, for sure. I'm
Hey
pretty
everyone,
sure.
thanks for having me back.
I spent most of the time waiting for the textures to load on my computer.
Oh yeah, take those right off. I upgraded my computer in order to play that a little bit better, but that's because I'm such a fan of that game and that aesthetic.
I watched my girlfriend play a little bit of it, and man, that is first of all, the tutorial's really long, like the intro part. But it got me engaged. I was like, what happens next? What happens next? So I think that's a good sign of great storytelling and a good experience.
It is an immersive world. If you take away all the stuff it kind of launched with, let's talk about the game as it exists right now. One of the most immersive worlds that I've ever really played in gaming. I love it.
Cool. Yeah, apparently
That's
there's
the point of tonight.
apparently there was like an RPG, right? Like a pen and paper one for Cyberpunk.
Yes, there's a tabletop.
Yeah.
Okay.
Tabletop.
Kind of like Shadowrun. That was my Cyberpunk when I was a kid. When I was back in the dark ages of gaming. So, but anyway, speaking of dark ages, we got ourselves my friend here, the dark one, Pepper Potts. What's up, Pepper?
Hey.
Thanks for coming on tonight. Appreciate you. Who are you?
Yeah, no
What are you
problem.
doing here?
That's a great question. I don't really know. I'm just kidding. Well,
Click.
I'm here to add whatever I can to the conversation about gaming. Admittedly, my thing is typically RPGs, tabletop RPGs, and cozy games. So that's like my kind of niche. If it has a good story, if you can grow crops and romance the hot NPC, like that's me. But
Wow, that
I'll feel
sounds
like I'll add what I can. I do like horror also, so that'll be relevant later.
so. Like if Cthulhu and Stardew Valley had a baby, like you would love that game. Is what you're saying?
Absolutely, that would be my jam.
Yeah.
Or I
Okay.
would say, if anything, Pepper is that crossover event between Isabella and the Doomslayer.
Yes.
There
Oh
you
my
go.
god, my two
That's actually it.
personalities.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. Animal Crossing. All right.
Yep.
Speaking of, all right, we got a full packed full show tonight. We got lots of articles to cover. We got some good stuff here. We got some great recommendations and a little segment of "What's Your Price," featuring Ace here. But we'll leave it that a little bit later. But if it's your first time here or you're coming back, welcome back to the Gaming Academy. It's your go-to podcast for all things gaming, where we dive deep into the stories, memories, and the latest news of the video game world. Whether you're a diehard gamer or just jumping into a virtual landscape, we're here to level up your experience. So buckle up and grab your controller and let's get right into it. Well, it's my favorite section because I think we get to cover a lot of variety in this section. Let's go ahead and plug into this week in gaming history. You guys okay with that?
Let's do it.
All right,
How dare
awesome.
you? No.
Okay, so what we got here? Let's go check. We gotta find the right one. There we go. All right, so back in October 27, 2009, the fabled League of Legends came out on PC for the first time. So, does anybody have any experience with League of Legends or just any cool stories?
Unfortunately.
Unfortunately, yeah. Beside the yelling and
Oh,
the
I want to
crying,
hear that.
yeah, go for it.
Oh, very brief, actually. A very brief touch with League of Legends towards I wouldn't say the beginning, but probably around 2012, I would say. I did a 6-month stint, and it was not my jam.
No,
The community at the time was incredibly toxic, and from what I understand, it has not gotten much better.
yeah. I mean, I don't really have a lot of history with League of Legends. I know it stems from copying Dota or whoever came first, but it came from a World of Warcraft or Warcraft 3 mod, right?
Yes, it was Defense of the Ancients,
That
which
hence
is a
Dota.
Warcraft 3 mod.
Yeah,
Yeah.
gotcha.
And then there was a whole bunch of stuff that happened in the background. There's a whole big history about it. Definitely suggest looking it up. It's kind of interesting how it happened, but the original creator um, wanted the rights to it, some
Mhm.
along those lines. It ended up getting spun off. League of Legends happened, and then Valve was like, "I want to be a part of that too."
I want that piece of the
Trademark.
pie.
Yeah, trademark. We've got the original creator. We're going to call it Defense of the Ancients. A whole bunch of stuff. Sorry, go ahead, Pap. I didn't mean to
No, that's
interrupt.
cool. No, that was a
No, absolutely. I mean, literally, it was kind of your typical. When the moment that people find out that you're female, you open your mouth, and it's just a whole, a whole snowball effect from there. Um, I'm actually glad that Elysian Paradox is chiming in, because they're much more of an expert than I am on League of Legends.
yeah. So what is this? Elysian Paradox said, what is this? I've been playing League for so long, I had no idea it started that way. How interesting. Another interesting note of this game is that the reason why Warcraft, I think, sorry, the the reason why there's such a strong user agreement on the new Warcraft 3 Reforge was because they don't want that same thing repeating all over again. So if you played Warcraft 3 Reforge, they pretty much said anything that you do that you mod or like create in this game will be property of Blizzard, not for you.
Yeah,
So yeah, it's a very
specifically
strong one.
thanks to Dota. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I played a lot of mods with Warcraft 3. It was one of my favorite games. Played a lot of RTSs back in the day. Playing that mod scene was just so much fun. There were so many games I remember playing. Actually, funny enough, you two talking about DBZ during our last one, there was a mod where they replaced the heroes on the map with DBZ characters, and you could like level them up and have power levels and go questing. It was really cool, like just stupid fun kind of stuff. But this reminds me of like the throwback to an older style of games where you can just like mod it, share it with the community, and have fun with it. Wasn't high stakes.
Yeah, and no, not everything has to be competitive, right? I think it's cool that people add mods and change up and freshens up the game as well. If you guys haven't heard of League of Legends because you've been living under a rock with no internet, this is a little bit of a description for that. So a player in League of Legends takes the role of a summoner, a gifted spellcaster who has the power to bring forth a champion to fight as his or her avatar in Valorant fields of justice. As a summoner controls the champion in combat, it also influences the outcome of the match through the use of spells, masteries, and runes. Once the match is over, the summoner gains influence points and riot points that can be used to assist their champions in future battles. Influence points will be earned by simply playing the game, while riot points will be available for purchase with real money. That's an interesting description from
Mm.
GameFAQs. So just keep that in
Yeah.
mind.
There's only three things that I remember about League of Legends. One of them being this kicked off the entire MOBA thing in the industry, and everyone had to make a MOBA or had to have MOBA stuff in it, just because of how quickly this blew up. Another one being anytime we went to the Penny Arcade Expo, we went to PAX. Remember how people used to fight or get rare drops to get the little cards that had the codes for the skins? Skins for this game are a whole thing. Like people go to these physical events to get the codes on those to like try to resell them because they're super rare
Mm,
or they're
yeah.
only out for a little bit of time. It's like the whole Penny Arcade thing, but for skins in a game. That was the first time in that space, that kind of event space, where people were like frantically trying to get LOL skins. Like was
Lol.
crazy. I just remember that. And the last one being Arcane, the anime series based off this
Mm.
universe,
Hmm.
ended up being really good. And I kind of wrote it off when it first came out because I wasn't a huge fan of LoL. I tried it back in the day, but I kind of wrote off that series. Ended up watching it after a bunch of people told me I should, and I ended up loving it. And I think the sequel series is out next month, season 2.
Yeah, I saw that was coming up, so we'll get to that. But yeah, what?
No, we'll get to that. I was like, okay.
Well, no. So the anybody else anything else coming out on the 27th? Anybody else have any kind of fun tidbits?
Not for the 27th, just so people know, we looked at this week. This week in gaming history is packed with bangers.
There's a lot.
A lot. So if we don't have
We're try-
anything more for that day, it's only because we have
Yeah.
so much for the rest of the week.
Yeah, we're trying to go for relevance. People in our people audience or stories that we
Are we trying to go
with
with
games.
relevance? I don't know.
That's-
Some of our choices
I
are
well,
pretty
I think
obscure.
I think League of Legends is pretty big in the gaming world. That's why I brought it up.
Yeah,
So,
actually, I have a small tidbit for the 27th as of for this week in gaming. Literally 2 years ago, Star Ocean: The Divine Force released.
Oh.
So yeah, newest entry in the Star Ocean series, and probably my favorite pair of lead pro tags in the series too.
big one.
Great. All I can say is Raymond is best boy.
Speaking of best boy,
Okay.
the next one is I don't know why this is all whack, but God's Eater
Yes.
Burst, which is a re-release of God Eater, came out on the PSP on I believe Monday, 28th. And so Ace, I know this is like one of your favorite games here. You've been playing this series for a while.
Yes, largely because this was the game that actually got me curious about trying Monster Hunter.
Oh,
Hmm.
pretty cool. Yeah, if you guys aren't familiar with God Eater, this is what its GameFAQ says. I don't know why this is like there's descriptions are very inconsistent. So the earth has been ruined by mutated beasts known as the Origami, and mankind's only hope against them is the Jinki weapons and the God Eaters who wield them. Players will create their own hero, battle more than 35 unique enemy types to find items to customize their weapons, guns, bullets, and shields to increase their strength and stamina. A unique Predator mode will add a new level of strategy as players transform their Gene Key to beast form to gain a boost in stats and special bullets to launch potent attacks solo or with up to 4 friends. Yeah. Just one of the games that are like I call them the part of the Hunter series because it's kind of the same format, right? They're
Mhm.
mission based, and you and your team try to defeat monsters. So yeah.
And if there's definitely one thing that really sets God Eater apart from other hunting titles, it's the bullet customization. Like that, like if you actually sit down and like really get into like working with like angles and the different bullet formulas that you can unlock over the course of the game,
Mhm.
like you can turn simple shots into literally like you pull the trigger once and it's just raining meteors on the battlefield. It's absolutely nuts.
There you go, chat. Go play this game. Anything else come out on the 28th that we missed? A notable?
Couple things, just quick. Bard's Tale on the Xbox, which like a little hidden gem RPG, I think, with tongue cheek,
A Bard's
cheek kind
Tale,
of
yeah.
take. Bard's Tale. Also, that was one of the ones for anyone who worked or owned that game or worked in the video game store. Whenever you gutted those games, the disc was one of those ones that said on it, turn it around to see a horrifying scene or whatever, and you turn around and it's reflective, so you'd have to look at your own face.
That's
So
good. That's
definitely a
good.
troll disc. I remember that. Amped 2 on the Xbox, snowboarding games for me. I loved 1080 back on the 64, and I loved Amped when it first came out, kind of like that spin on Skate. And then Amped 2 was the second one. And then there's just so many. There's so many to talk about, but those are a couple of quick ones I just remember playing back in the day. Yeah, definitely. Let's move on to the next day. There's so many.
Pepper, have you ever played a God Eater Burst game? I can't even say that without a straight face.
Honestly, I haven't, but I'm kind of interested because I'm trying to broaden my horizons a little bit. Getting into like games such as, Monster Hunter. I know, crazy that I've never really fully played a Monster Hunter game except for oh my god, the one where it's basically like Pokemon and Monster Hunter together and having a
Monster Hunter Stories.
Yes, I played the crap out of that game. I love that game.
Now with
So
God Eater, if you're planning on going into that, it's actually a little bit more arcade style compared to Monster Hunter. It's going to be a little bit more fast paced, but definitely as far as like the story in the games, that's also more upfront compared to Monster Hunter as well. So again, you said you were into RPGs.
Oh yeah,
you cannot go wrong with God Eater.
That's
I
true.
love me a good story. So
well, our next game has no need for introduction. I'll just go right through to it. It is the ever popular COD. Call of Duty.
Oh my god.
Yeah, came out. The first Call of Duty came out apparently on October 29, 2003, and man, did this thing just create a whole new genre of first-person shooters. So I figured that's what I should add. Why I should add that in there.
I feel like it created a whole personality too.
Well, sometimes like certain games just bring out the ugly, like War in Call of Duty, right?
I mean, like COD wasn't my jam, but there's no denying like that was one that defined a genre and helped define a generation.
I think like my introduction to Call of Duty, my story with Call of Duty was that I was so impressed with the battlefield, right? Is that the Battlefield one where like they do the storming of the Normandy, right? That little like scripted trailer, and then Call of Duty had their own. But it was like I think it was the amount of soldiers on the screen at the same time that got me like, wow, this is cool. Versus like before you could only fit so much, and so it felt more like a big war that was happening in the scenery. So
was it Battlefield or was it Medal of Honor?
That's kind of what I was getting at. I think it was Medal of Honor.
Yeah, because I think it was the Normandy landing was the first time done by Medal of Honor, and I just remember just because I studied a lot of that in history class, and that was like the first game that did that. But still, like that entire era back when we had Medal of Honor and Call of Duty, like Call of Duty did a lot, but I felt like it really started to kick off after Call of Duty 2. Like, I remember when Call of Duty 2 came out on the Xbox 360, that was kind of like its tech demo when it came out, kind of thing. Like, that was one of the launch titles. I remember having that in our demo unit at the kiosk at the front of our store. Like, call it COD 2 was there, and it was like, oh my god, we're running around in the Egyptian desert, El Alamein. Like, oh my gosh.
They got COD
Oh,
2, man. Let's go. Yeah, so it is as described. Call of Duty delivers the gritty realism and cinematic intensity of World War II's epic battlefield moments through the eyes of citizen soldiers, or through eyes of citizen soldiers and unsung heroes from an alliance of countries who together help shape the course of modern history. This is too real. Play through the chaos of battle as part of a well-trained squad that lays down cover fire and pulls down its wounded to safety. In addition to authentic squad movements and tactics, each soldier's distinct personality and training comes out on the battlefield. From the perspectives of America, British, and Russian soldiers take on mission objectives ranging from sabotage and all-out assault to stealth, vehicle combat, and rescue. Authentic weapons, locations, vehicles, and sounds of war immerse you in an intense World War II experience. So I feel like that is way too much for what I experienced the first time I played it. Like when they say well-trained squad that lays down covering fire and then the authentic squad movements and tactics, that's not in the gameplay from what I remember. So a little much on that. Anyway, any other cool releases this day aside from Call of Duty? I'm pretty sure it blanketed a bunch of other games that came out that day.
the 29th, was there any more that you had art for, or were we just going to be throwing out some other really cool titles that came out
Yeah,
that day?
just throw some stuff up.
Ultima Online: The Second Age. Well, I know we talked about Ultima on a previous one, so it's worth just mentioning. The Second Age came out. That was in '98 on this day. Also, the TurboGrafx copy of, I think it was Rondo of Blood, also released.
Turbo graphics. How dare you
Yeah,
speak unspoken?
yeah. Hey, I mean, Rondo of Blood is huge.
Turbo graphics.
For me, though, one of the big ones, I don't know if we're gonna have a bigger conversation on it, but Fallout 2 was released.
Yeah.
That one in 1998 as well, Fallout 2, which I loved, played a lot as a kid. Definitely one of my favorite games that I shouldn't have been playing at that age. Definitely not. But it was fun to sneak over to a friend's house and play it. And then as I got older, obviously buying it on my own and then rebuying it as it gets re-released in different platforms.
GOG
But yeah, that
and
one's definitely a
all the
classic
above.
for me.
Yeah, I think the game that I was not allowed to play when I was a kid was Duke Nukem 3D. So
Oh yeah, well of course not.
Yeah, thanks, Mom.
Yeah, thanks, Mom. Thanks, GQ's mom. There was definitely oh god, like just a couple other quick ones. X-Men Next Dimension on Xbox in 2002. GTA 3 was released overseas, so GTA had a big release on this day. There was a bunch of stuff like Wargaming Seattle, for example. The company had its movie rights bought in order to create a movie about the Dungeon Siege series, which never came to be, but it happened back in the day, as far as I know.
In the Name of the Father is
that what it was?
In the Name of the King is the Dungeon Siege movie.
Oh, there we go.
I remember that
was in
one
2003.
because Jason Statham.
That's right. I recently just found that out because I googled, does Dungeon Siege have a movie? And that popped up. So
there you go. That's when it happened.
There's actually one big thing that happened on the 29th, though, that I'm pretty sure someone here was chomping at the bit to talk about. That being the Japanese release of the Sega Genesis.
Oh yeah. Wait, that's coming up.
AKA the old Mega Drive.
Spoilers. Because in Japan, when it's tomorrow, it's today in the US. So we got it right here.
That's Genesis. That's not the Mega Drive.
It's the same thing. But yeah. I didn't own one because you guys know, when you guys watch a show, my mom made it a one console house. I was not allowed to have another console outside of a Nintendo. And then before I upgraded to a Super Nintendo, I wasn't allowed to have another console in the house, right? I had to trade mine in or sell it. So I have no stories except sneaking over to my friend's house every weekend and playing Genesis until I'm like, all right, time to go home because it's getting dark. So I don't know. How about you guys?
Yeah, for me, the Genesis was actually the Genesis was actually the first while the NES was more of the family console, so everybody had their games that we'd play on it, whether it was Blaster Master or Pinbot or Tetris. Uh, the Genesis was the first console that my family had that was just strictly for the four boys. So strictly for me and my brothers, and we had like let's see, we had Moonwalker, Sonic the Hedgehog 1 and 2. Let's see, it was Moonwalker, Sonic 1 and 2, Golden Axe, Two Crude Dudes,
I know that game.
and like the big one that I played a lot on the Genesis was Captain America and the Avengers.
Mm.
I was hoping
Yeah.
you were going to say Altered Beast. Just
Well,
to
I
hear
mean,
the wolf roar. 'Cause he
clearly
transformed.
Ace had a very rich household. He got so many games with his
Yeah, he had so many
consoles.
games.
Damn.
I had to get my Genesis in a garage sale.
Yeah.
Actually, that was pretty much how we got all our games. Like, it
Garage
was
sale?
just
That's smart.
swap garage sales and the swap meet.
Yeah, that's smart actually. That's it's kind of the same. Like, well, it's mostly for retro game hunters, right? People go to, like, estate sales and garage sales to grab retro games for cheap, for unknowing people that just have them in their house, right?
Mhm.
So
Yeah, a little before my time, guys. Sorry.
it's okay.
I remember some of our previous casts. The advertising for this was crazy back in the day. The Genesis, especially in the U.S. team that did all the advertising over here on our shores. But just the whole push about Genesis does what Nintendo don't. The whole push that they wanted to differentiate. Like
I
Ace
remember
said,
that.
it's not for kids, it's not for families. This is like the next generation of gaming for those cool, like, alternative kids, and we hate our parents and all this stuff. Like, I just, beyond like the advertising and the games, the biggest thing that stuck out to me that still to this day is just comparing game releases between the two consoles, because sometimes there's a game you wanted and you can only get one or the other in some households. In ours, we didn't have a choice.
Right.
But
Yeah.
like, after working in a retro store for a while, like, just seeing the differences, and just there's so many like iconic soundtracks I remember from my Genesis games, like Streets of Rage, especially Streets of Rage 2, one of the best soundtracks in a video game still to this day. I don't know how they got the little chips inside the Genesis to make those noises, but if you haven't had a chance to listen to it, like, listen to it. It was so ahead of its time. It's so good.
And then, of course, you had other bangers like John Madden Football.
This is the first time, I think EA games, that was that kind of like their birth, like
Uh,
for sports
well,
games?
for sports games, yeah. Sports games, yeah. Like the big blow up for EA was it was the Madden series, and like it was the Madden series and Live.
Oh, the basketball one, right? That's
Yep.
right. Gotcha. So this
Definitely
is
keep in
what
mind as well, like, on that note, Ace, one of the reasons was because of the work. We mentioned this during last week. I think we were talking about the Console Wars book that I read.
Mhm.
Definitely check that out. Once again, I gotta say it twice so you pick it up. But it was because of the licensing deals that the head of Sony, not Sony, sorry, Sega America, went out to get, specifically to get John Madden signed, and specifically to get those sports and those popular people tied to the Genesis, is the reason that those kept coming out and being iterated on, and really pushed those games forward, was because of the work that Sega did behind the scenes to get those deals done, to take them away from Nintendo, to try to own the market.
Oh. So
Yeah.
while Nintendo was trying to keep their foot in the door with stuff like RBI baseball and Tech and the Tecmo Bowl games, if you were rocking the Genesis, like most of the neighborhood kids, then no matter what, there is, on every single block, there was at least one house where you would open up the garage and there was a whole bunch of people sitting there, TV hooked up, playing Madden.
Pepper's like, what is this world you speak of?
Simpler times.
I mean, listen,
analog age.
I I was part of the generation that still did LAN parties, right? So
Mhm.
I can kind of get a good picture of what was going on. It's
I,
it's
Yeah,
a it's a time
wasn't
that
too
is no
far from that.
longer.
I speak of a time of precursors.
This is what GameFAQs had to say about the new generation in video game entertainment: 16-bit power from
Blast process.
from Sega, a world leader in video game arcade entertainment. Only Sega, the master of arcade entertainment, they like saying that word, arcade, could introduce Genesis, a superior dimension in home video entertainment. Sega, the creator of today's most innovative arcade hits like Afterburner, Outrun, Altered Beast, Thunderblade, and Zaxxon, never heard of that last one, has unleashed the power of the Genesis for unmatched playing power. My God, that was epic. So that's kind of crazy. So,
Things had
yeah,
advertising back in the day, man.
dude. I mean, like I said, we're gonna make an episode where we cover all the ads for video games back in like the 80s and 90s. Those were wild. So,
I'll definitely
speaking,
want Pepper back for those too, just to see those
just
ads that we had to live through.
I would love to see her
Yeah, when
reactions
I
to
was
that.
like in diapers, totally.
Well, the next game over here, dude, this is so bad. Well, Marvel Superheroes came out in the arcade on the 31st in 1995 of October. So that's a big one for me. I think this was the big push for the Versus series. This was the kind of like the I guess what the beginning, right? This was before X-Men versus Street Fighter.
This was before X-Men versus Street Fighter, but the start of it was X-Men Children of the Atom.
Correct. Okay, so then this was like the second one, the release of it, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I chose this the PlayStation Japanese art because this artwork here is so cool. Like I've never seen it before because I've only seen the American one, so this is really cool to see.
Hey, this was just the start of having so many better artworks in the international market than we got in the U.S.
There was a Saturn box art too but it covered like a third of this of the art because it said Sega Saturn on it, so it's pretty rough. So you guys should check it out. I chose this one specifically because I do remember after school we would go to the theater in Chicago and they had a Marvel Superheroes arcade machine in the theater, and we just we'd save up $5 and play this game for at least 3 hours until we had to pretty much run home before our parents yelled at us. So that's kind of how I
Ugh,
remember this game.
3 hours on $5. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
Well,
Right?
the thing that I like to, and this, like I said, this could be saved for an episode where we talk about gaming now versus gaming back then. Is that in fighting games back then, in order for you to preserve your money and make it last longer, you just had to get good. Otherwise, every time you lose, you just had to pay more, and we didn't like paying more, so we just tried not to lose. So
The origins of Get Good.
yeah, yeah. So that was
Pretty
like
motivating.
that was the big thing in the arcades, was that, for at least for me, I can't speak for anybody, was that if I only had two to $5 at the arcade, then I really like fighting games, I had to get good. Otherwise, I just kept paying for the damn game, right? So
Exactly. And Pepper, I got two words for you in terms of like as far as Marvel superheroes goes. Another San Bernardino native. I have two words for you. Pizza Chalet. The Pizza
Oh my
Chalet
God.
over on Highland, right off the Sierra Way.
Yeah.
That's where they had Marvel superheroes. That's where they had the first, like one of the first cabinets in San Bernardino was right there at that Pizza Chalet.
It's a whole
Oh my
chalet of
God.
pizza.
That's not
pizza.
something I've heard in a very long time.
You're
You
welcome.
guys want to play some Marvel at Pizza Shallot?
Right?
Oh my gosh. Wow.
This is what GameFAQs
That's
had
so
to say.
specific.
Marvel Superheroes is a 2D fighting game and the second Capcom title to feature characters from the Marvel comic universe. Because you said X-Men was the first one. Gameplay is very similar to X-Men: Children of the Atom, but with a simplified super combo gauge and the addition of infinity gems. Each character starts with a set of gems. These can be activated during a fight to improve speed, power, defense, or provide special abilities to create crushing stone walls, open up a rift in space, or reverse the opponent's controls. That's annoying. The use of gems is inspired by the Infinity Gauntlet comic book series. There's more, but I'm not going to read it. So that's pretty much it. Let's see.
I before we get too much further,
Yeah,
just a couple things because there was a few that I wanted to call out really quick, just because again this week is packed.
go for it.
Jagos actually brought it up. Shaq Fu, you guys, October 28th,
Ah,
1994.
yes.
I hate that, but keep going.
Okay, okay. Say what you will about Shaq Fu, and there is plenty that can be said. But you can't deny that the soundtrack, at the very least on the Super NES, the soundtrack was dope.
I mean, Shaq Fu looked good, sounded good. It just didn't play good.
Exactly.
That's the and also I played the second version, which was a beat 'em up. Same thing. Looks good, sounds good. It's pretty mid as a brawler.
If
Beat
you
'em up.
get a chance, definitely watch Flophouse Plays. He does a like worst fighting game ever series that he does. Matt McMuscles, sorry, that's his main channel. He did a video on that one. It is worth going back because he breaks down the mechanics and stuff, and he plays a lot of fighting games. So it's really cool to hear like his impressions on it, going from like, "Hey, I've played a lot of games. This plays like crap," and then kind of getting some context for it. I definitely recommend that one. A couple more on those days because Shaq Fu can't talk about it all night because we will. On the 30th, a couple games that kind of stood out to me, my own personal gaming history. On the 30th, Load Runner on PC. I played that a lot as a kid. I know we talked about that behind the curtain on Discord a little bit for some of the members that are on there. A lot of fun talking about that. Age of Mythology, the original release, came out in 2002 on the 30th.
I beat that this year.
And on the PC in 2007 was Hellgate London, which was a PC game I wanted to be so good, and it was not. Um, and on the 31st, on the Halloween day, which we are on right now, just a couple quick ones. Twisted Metal 2 came out on the
Nice.
PSX in 96. And then, funny enough, in 1998, Twisted Metal 3 came out on the same day.
Wow.
So, two Twisted Metals. Sonic R as well. Amazing game. We really wanted it to be so good, and it wasn't. And the last one on the 31st that I wanted to mention was South Park Chef's Love Shack. For those of us who had it on 64. Another
Jesus.
game that my parents probably didn't want me to be playing.
Nope.
Man, I almost forgot about the fabled Chef's Love Shack video game on the 64. My gosh. Well, we
That's
got
why we live in history, so we can't forget it.
we got a nice comment here from Jagos. Everyone missed the Punisher, which was the start of the Marvel Capcom relationship. Lol. It's true. You're right. Speaking of beat 'em up, that was a really good one.
Yes.
So, all right. So our last one for today, but not the very least, is the Blood Omen Legacy of Kain. I picked this one because it was one of those hidden gems that I felt like not a lot of people played or paid attention to, but it when I first played it on the PlayStation, it gave me Legend of Zelda vibes, right? And so that's kind of why I chose this as my personal this week in gaming history for the 1st of November. You guys ever played Legacy of Kain, the first one?
I did not play the first one. I only know it because of Crystal Dynamics.
That's true. Yeah.
I played a tiny bit of Blood Omen, but my first jump into the Legacy of Kain series was Soul Reaver.
Soul Reaver. Yep.
Yeah, that was mine too.
Pep, you ever play any of the Legacy of Kain or Blood Omen?
No, but I have such vivid memories of watching my cousin play this game, of just like sitting in front of the TV that had like, if you touched it, you would definitely get like zapped with the static, right?
Yes.
CRT.
sitting in front of the TV, just eating snacks and watching him play this game. And I definitely, seeing that mature rating, I'm like, yeah, I should definitely not have been watching him play this game. But yeah, I think a huge fan.
I think when this game came out, I was probably like, what was this, 96? I was 15, right? And I remember being in Chicago and my friend JP playing this. And I was like, so this game looks totally different than the Soul Reaver series. Like, this is like top down Legend of Zelda style. You go to room and the stage panels over to the next area, kind of like that. Very old school Legend of Zelda. And the thing that really I really resonated with me was that he would stab somebody and then like he would then absorb their blood and you get your health back. And he would did that multiple times. And I was like, wow, this game is like kind of graphic. And and it was like very small pixelated top down art. So it wasn't really much to see at the time, but at the time, old man yells at cloud. At the time, that was that was very violent. So
That was the style at the time.
and that was the
There you
style
go.
at the time. GameFAQ says, "You're the vampire king, damned to feast upon the blood of man. Steel yourself for an epic quest of vengeance that will drag you to the depths of depravity. Explore the vast world of Nosgoth, over 100,000 screens of adventure and puzzle solving packed with 100 plus hours of gameplay. Slaughter 170 different enemies with multiple weapon and armor power ups in real time combat. Unleash an arsenal of deadly magic, 21 eldritch objects and spells, morph into different forms like a bat, wolf, or mist. Sounds like Symphony of the Night. 25 minutes of full motion animation and hours of voiceover delivered in a twisted storyline." That was a selling point back in
Hell
1996
yeah.
for sure. Man, even the
Oh,
descriptions are
God.
dated. No, it's really cool, and it really it really stemmed into the Soul Reaver series and that whole lore, which has been forgotten. And then, but hopefully it comes back because they did just re-release the Soul Reaver remastered. So hopefully we get something out of this from Kane Daddy.
Here's
But yeah,
hope.
what else we got?
Let's see. November 1st was actually kind of big for RPGs. Because just going down the list from what I can see, Arc the Lad 2 dropped
Nice.
in Japan on the PlayStation 28 years ago. Let's see. Oh, let's see. On the Super Nintendo, not quite an RPG, but Donkey Kong Country 3, Dixie Kong's Double Trouble.
That's a good one. Apparently the hardest one too out of all of them.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and there was a little mention of it earlier, but Age of Mythology dropped on PC November 1st. But the other big RPGs here, Valkyrie Profile, Covenant of the Plume dropped in Japan.
It's 3DS, right?
For the DS.
Oh, DS. Okay.
And Tales of Exilia 2 dropped in Japan on the PS3.
That's a good one.
I remember having the collector's edition of that for a short time.
Oh,
Yep, another
Steelbook,
Yeah.
man. I told you.
another RPG where like a direct sequel was actually made for it, and that direct sequel was actually really damn solid.
Gotcha.
A couple rapid fire from me on this day that I definitely want to call out, ones that I have experience with or ones that I really think need to be mentioned. Again, it's stacked with the amount of games, just like Ace was saying. I'm going to go off the RPG train a little bit, but go right back into it. Duke Nukem episodes 1 through 3 on the DOS. Remember the shareware games back in the day? 1991, it released on November 1st. The first 3 episodes. I loved playing the OG Duke Nukem games. I remember getting floppy disks of those. That's how old I am. I was very young, but still dates me. Way of the Warrior for the 3DO, fighting game fans. Such an awful game. That released in 1994. In 1996, Elder Scrolls Daggerfall for the PC was a big release. Spyro Year of the Dragon on the PlayStation 1, the year 2000. In 2011 on this day, Uncharted 3 came out as well, the end of the original trilogy of the Drake games. For me, though, the biggest thing I wanted to bring up on this day, in 1975, on November 1st, the Sammy Corporation was established. Industry fans. So if you're not familiar with them, they were originally manufacturing and marketing for recreational machines at Satomi. You're going to know them for their games, though, and that's why I wanted to bring this up, is because we have our other faculty members who are fan of the games, just to give you a taste of the games that the Sammy Corporation is tied to. Guilty Gear X, Guilty Gear Petite and Petite 2, X Plus, X2, X2 Reload, Asuka, Burnout 2, King of Fighters Neo Wave, and most recently, Yakuza Like a Dragon. So the Sammy Corporation, happy birthday.
Man, I never knew they had so many ties in other video games because my only
And there's more too, but those were the ones I knew that, like, hey, this team has played some of these games.
Yeah, because my only memory of Sammy when I was a kid, I think I played like Silkworm on the Nintendo, and there's some other Nintendo Sammy titles that they released. I just thought their name as a company was very unique because it was named after a dude like Sammy, right? So that's I never knew they were just that big. I thought they were just like a small little publisher or studio.
Right, there's a huge gap in their history, because although they were like established in '75, they didn't start like pumping out games until the '90s, and they were a mix of stuff. Like we're talking Sengoku stuff, some not safe for work mahjong games apparently too, because it was the Wild West in the early to mid '90s, and then onto things like Guilty Gear and Burnout, up until like 2005, and then nothing until 2020 when
Mm.
Like a Dragon came out. So, eh.
Well, there you go, guys. Chad, that is your this week in gaming history. There was a lot packed there. So, well, it is like Q4, right? So games are coming out like this month or this time.
Holiday season, baby. Give me those
Yep.
deals. Give me that Christmas list.
Yeah. Pep, you got
Speaking of,
anything for holiday that you want to get?
Oh gosh. I mean, I do want to get the new Dragon Age game. I can't commit yet until I see some actual gameplay first.
Okay. Right on. I'm the same as you. Like, and that's the problem is if they don't do a demo, I may have to kind of like resort to
Mhm.
like watching YouTubers play it, right? So,
or you might have to come upstairs and watch me play.
uh, torture. I'd rather die. No, I was kidding. All right. So we got a bunch of topics here today. But one kind of news popped up on my feed here, courtesy of Nick this morning, and I kind of looked into it a little bit more. But apparently, Sony has decided Firewalk Studios is not gonna do it for them, and they're deciding to close them down.
What? Okay, crazy thing.
Yeah.
Didn't they acquire them like what? Like not that long ago? I feel like I read about this not that long ago.
Yeah.
4 years
So
ago.
what happened?
4 years
Yeah. So
ago, and that was part of the cost of development that people have been throwing out there. That big scary number of like they spent so much money on it. Part of that was acquiring the team, Firewalk.
yeah, and there's a lot of stories, of course, and people covering this on YouTube. Like, I feel like half of my feed is like YouTubers or the new journalists for video games now these days. And from what I understand from our last conversation, because did cover Concord here, and on the podcast, one of the very few first episodes we had was they bought them to make a game for Sony, right? And then I think from what you said that they looked into them and like what the progress was, and it wasn't anything like what they wanted it to be or something. So they put more money down, and so I don't know what happened there. Like what Pepper said earlier, could it be communication, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely communication. A lot of things, like you said, have been said ad nauseum about them. But the big thing about it is there's a lot of stuff in the last couple weeks that was talking about, hey, maybe the game can go free to play. Maybe they can spin it out into something else. Maybe they can recoup something out of this in order to not feel like they just wasted a ton of money and hopefully like keep those jobs there. But no, Sony straight up is like, nope. We decided at this time that we are closing that studio and another one in their restructuring.
So I do have a message from Herman Holst, the CEO of Studio Business Group at Sony here. This is what he wrote to the Sony Interactive employees. He says, "Dear team, today I want to share some important updates from SIE Studio Business Group. We consistently evaluate our games portfolio and status of our projects to ensure we are meeting near and long-term business priorities. As part of our ongoing efforts to strengthen SIE studio business, we have had to make a difficult decision relating of two of our studios, Neon Koi and Firewalk Studios. Which one's Neon Koi? What do they do?
Mobile.
Mobile, okay. Expanding beyond PlayStation devices and crafting engaging online experiences alongside our single player games are key focal areas for us as we evolve our revenue streams. We need to be strategic, though, in bringing our games to a new platforms and recognize when our games fall short of meeting player expectations. When mobile, blah, 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 studio business, we're starting mobile efforts. I want you to talk to, like, apologize to, like, what you guys did to these guys. So on. Regarding Firewalk, here we go. As announced in early September, certain aspects of Concord were exceptional, but others did not land with enough players. As a result, we took the game offline. We have spent considerable time these past few months exploring our options. After much thought, we have determined that the best path forward is to permanently sunset the game and close the studio. I want to thank all of Firework for their craftsmanship, creative spirit, and dedication. The PvP first person shooter genre is a competitive space that's continuously evolving, and unfortunately, we did not hit our targets with this title. We will take the lessons learned from Concord and continue to advance our live service capabilities to deliver future growth in this area. Here's here. Talk a little bit more about Neon Firewalk, home talent individuals, just more of the PR stuff. While today is difficult today, there's much to look forward in the months ahead of Studio Business Group and our teams. I remain confident that we are building a resilient, capable organization driven by creating unforgettable entertainment experience for our players. So, yeah, I mean, set up to fail is kind of the first thing that comes up here, and that's unfortunate because these are people that were, it's almost like don't shoot the messenger, right? Sony was like, create this game, and they were like, yes, sir. And then like people didn't like it, and it was I was hearing a lot of toxic positivity a lot, so maybe people weren't allowed to kind of say something and to kind of, hey guys, like maybe this is not the just the path we should take. And the people in the higher ups were like, no, keep going. We don't know that, I don't know that, but I do feel from experience that like when higher ups have a say in something what they have really no knowledge of, you're just forced to do it until you go, see, I warned you, but you didn't listen, right?
Mm-hmm.
But since they're the boss, you couldn't really do too much about it. Okay. Thoughts, feelings, prayers.
Prayers.
I mean,
prayers are already said, but I think we're
Yeah.
past that point. We're burying it right now. Go ahead,
Yeah,
Ace. Sorry.
yeah, no, basically that letter from Herman Holst was that was a eulogy.
Oh my god, that's dark.
There, like you said, there was no apology to the staff getting their jobs axed because of how colossally Concord failed. And
Yeah,
let's be real, it did fail. Like,
Yeah.
the
And
facts
so
show.
quickly too.
it's
Yeah.
like you can't call it a good stew if the only thing good in it is one of the vegetables.
Dancing coffin meme.
Is it appropriate to say my man's cooking right now? So,
Getting
Pep,
roasted.
we talked about this on the channel for the first couple episodes. So I'd like to kind of hear your perspective on this, like coming from your side. I really want to know, like, how do you feel about like the situation and the nature of this kind of practice?
As far as acquiring an entire game studio that has its own goal, its own vision, its own people, and then taking it and ruining it.
Well, like it's hard to. First of all, how much context do you know about the situation? Have you been following it or?
So I do remember, I want to say it was not that long ago. Didn't you say it was the studio itself was very young? I think it was pre-COVID, and
Mhm.
then it was acquired, I want to say like a year or two ago. Is that right?
Uh,
4 years ago, if I
Yeah.
remember right.
4 years ago? Oh my God,
This
time
game took 4
is
years to make.
weird.
Yeah.
sure.
So during
Um,
COVID, essentially.
Yeah.
And hold on,
I
didn't Concord take 8 years to develop?
So hold on. In its current form, if you're talking about the game development as a whole, it's technically 8 years. But keep in mind that's if you're including the original mock-up of the game and the original pitch of it. So
Right.
just a little bit of context. The company was called Probably Monsters, and I know a couple people from there. I've been able to
yes.
work with them, which is great. They're right in Bellevue. They were right around the corner from where I was working in the
I
industry.
know nothing about
Um,
this company.
no, not a big deal. They have a couple. They're one of those kind of, best of my understanding, I'm not going to speak for them. They were one of those studios that would have multiple projects with multiple individual teams that were essentially own mini studios underneath the Probably Monsters umbrella. And Concord was done by one team, or like the original framework of it. Sony bought that team, that pitch, that game, which
Mhm.
became Concord. It was already in development for about 4 years at that point, and
Yeah.
then it switched over to the new, like when Sony bought it, Concord as we know it now, and how that rolled out and became a game. So it is 8 years, but it's a little squiffy.
Okay.
Like Blue Riot Bot is saying that my understanding too is that the studio was just bought last year.
But the rights
But
were
the
bought.
yeah, four
Yeah.
years ago. That
Okay.
that
Yeah, so
sounds
Sony bought
right
the
to me.
rights and then bought the studio when it was getting close to launch because, as we know, Sony wants live service.
That's true. So, with that said, in that context, what's your opinion on what's been happening here with them?
I'm not. So I'm used to be very close with someone who went into game development. She went to DigiPen Institute of Technology over in Redmond, and to see and hear the struggles that she has dealt with in the gaming industry, and then to hear something like this, where a game studio, which has a very specific vision and identity, and it's just absorbed into Sony, and then all of a sudden they're like, no, we're done. It's very disheartening, I guess. And I feel very badly for people who are, their dream is to get into the gaming industry and, you know, do the, do the work that they're so passionate about, only to get with a smaller gaming company that they love, and then to be acquired, and they think this it's going to be this amazing thing. Because my memory tells me that Sony was just, being super positive, like you were saying. This is going to be a great thing. It's going to be a great match. Like, it's going to be awesome. And then a year or so later, it's just, we're done. I'm
Yep.
done. I'm done with you. It's sad.
And it's unfortunate that that is not uncommon. I've had so many friends in the industry lose their jobs in the last year, especially. I was a casualty as well at the beginning of last year. I lost my job in the industry, and it is brutal out there. It's incredibly competitive because there are so many passionate people, and there's a whole culture around it we can talk about another time, but that's just another stack on top of this, like, storybook of the same thing happening, where it just feels like so many passionate people are losing their jobs because of decisions kind of done on the high end and like the C suite, right? And like you mentioned, Pepper, with your friend, kind of talking about what's going on, getting out of DigiPen, going into the industry,
Mhm.
that gets taken advantage of a lot. I was a contract worker, and that's extremely common in the IT space because you can be let go at any time in Washington. It's an at-will state. So it's a lot of turn and burn. I'm sure this game they thought was going to be great. Then it came out, and they were just like, we can just cut bait. It's
Mm.
not an easy decision. I'm not saying they're completely like soulless about it, but it certainly feels like that. And with everyone in the industry, like the Microsoft Activision um, purchase of what was it? It's Activision, right? Blizzard Activision.
Yep.
When they bought that, like all the layoffs that happened in this last year, and they just laid off more people after the merger.
Yeah.
Like all the talk that there was about trying to maintain these jobs, constantly just cutting to people, and we're not really getting better games out of it. We're losing games, we're losing studios, we're losing talent.
Yeah, I think, like, personally, I feel that, you know, the industry itself needs a reboot, right? Or it's I think it's gotten too fat or too bloated, right?
Concord.
And no, the industry itself. And I think what they're doing is they're trying to chase after Fortnite money, where that's why you said live service is like the future, because it's I've always talked about this when I worked at the store with you. Is like these companies are looking to make money after your initial purchase, right? Because that's how they make more money from you, is the purchase after you buy the game that you initially paid for, in forms of DLC or season passes and stuff like that. And I think that chase for that dollar has ruined, like, the artistic and kind of more focused portion of video games. But because it is a product, I understand that, but like there's some games that succeed and blossom that doesn't have a season pass or a live service model, right? But
It's it's a succession. It's a, like, I could say pretty much like the entirety of the 90s and let's say like the early 2000s. that was that was like rapid fire cases of developers and publishers capturing lightning in a bottle, and now everyone's chasing that
Yeah.
lightning and not realizing that there's still so much sky out there to utilize.
Well, it's
No,
just
it's
dollars
So
and
well
cents.
put.
It's a business, and there's so many decisions that can be talked about, but it does feel predatory. It doesn't mean it feels good about it. I understand they have to run a business, but it just
yeah.
feels like it can be done in a more equitable sense.
Well,
It can be done in a way that retains talent instead of, pushes them out the door kind of thing.
honestly, I think it's mostly because of investors.
Yeah.
You don't
Yeah.
have this issue with indie companies, right? Indie games because they want to make something they want to make, right? This is why I think Double A will make a comeback, and it's not a comeback, but like it will blossom more than Triple A. As Triple A crumbles, Double A is going to sneak in there and say, "Hey, we're
Yeah.
going to a lower price point and then more copies." So
As long as
Yeah.
users in the industry celebrate that. The problem is that they don't always have the platform, or you can see constant comments in subreddits and other communities for game devs, like on NeoGAF when that was still like a big thing. All these people, these indie studios trying to make something, and they put it out in the world. They try to talk to people about getting keys to review their games, getting to content creators. No one buys it. No one wish lists it. It's incredibly competitive, incredibly difficult. You basically, as an indie dev, also have to be a marketing guru in
mhm.
order to get eyes on your game. It's tough. It doesn't reward them a lot of times. And that's what a lot of people getting into the industry, getting out of DigiPen don't realize a lot of times is that it is hyper competitive, is extremely difficult. Not only do you have to have talent, you really have to have drive and you really
Yeah.
have to stick it out.
Do
Pep, you're
you
going to say
know
something?
what I was going to say? The game that recently that comes to mind as far as indie games that have just blown my mind, and I know you weren't a big fan of this game, but I absolutely love this game. Enshrouded. That game, uh, independent and from day one was playable. It had its little hiccups here and there, but it was playable. Um, and they have continued to roll out updates, and they've listened to their community as to what the community wants, and they
Yeah.
have delivered, and I am just blown away by it. I love that game.
All right, I gotta pause for a second. Hold on. What's this attack about here? Hold on. Where did that come from? I don't
I,
like this
I
game.
just I remember you telling me it wasn't quite your jam, so I
Okay,
was
so
like,
let me judge. I want to
Hold
defend
on.
myself.
Hold he's reeling it back. Hold on.
Hold on.
and he's like,
Pause.
wait.
We're stopping the show right now. Hold on.
Slander.
Hold on. Pause.
Controversy time. Let's
I
go.
I wanted to tell chat that I have no issue with Enshrouded. That the thing is the type of game it is not my forte. And I think Enshrouded as a game in itself has definitely grown to like it was way different than when I first started playing it to what it is now. And I think that is for the positive. Like I like that about that company and that dev team, but just the way the game is just really not my thing. I'm not big into like Minecraft and Ark and stuff like that. Those survival games where you build a base, not really my thing. But like as far as like in its merit, like I do like the story. Combat's a little jank, but a lot of games are very similar like that, right? But I like the end of the art direction isn't really like my first choice. Maybe just because everyone looks so stouty, like right, like everyone looks so like short and like pudgy. It's weird. Like I don't know. Maybe that was
We can't all be Stellar Blade. I'm sorry.
no. It's not even that. It's like I feel like it's just like the art direction. It has nothing to do with like the world. I think it's just the art. I'm not a fan.
Well, and the art could just be a result of the engine they're using, the size of the game, the resources that they have. It just is what it is.
Yeah,
I think like Pepper was saying, the biggest thing about that game that really like sold people, because I'm not a big fan of survival games either. I don't have the time to like sit there and worry about all that stuff. The
yeah,
whole idea about like food, shelter, water is like incentivized in that game, which is good. It's not just like a thing, a bar you manage. It actually incentivizes you to do it. So I liked that. That was something I picked out
Yeah.
from that, from like the early trailers and stuff. I'm like, oh, this is kind of like a newer spin on it, or at least an update to it that kind of takes out the thing that I didn't like about survival games, which is the boring bar management. I'm not one to talk because I play a lot of time management games. I love the theme games. I played a lot of like 2 Point Hospital and 2 Point Campus, but survival games aren't usually my thing, so I
It,
get it.
it's okay. I mean, I play SimCity as my favorite game, so that's just me. I'm just lame. But uh, Michaela Cyrus says, "Enshrouded, hell yeah!" There you
Hell
go,
yeah.
there you go. Thanks, Michaela. Speaking of survival games, the next article here, Nick was the one that brought this up. Did you want to share that, Nick? Since you brought this up, brought to the podcast for today.
Which one was it?
Netflix closes.
That's right. So speaking of AAA games and closures, Netflix has closed its all-star AAA video game studio, which has made a total of 0 games.
Whoa.
I
So
was gonna say
all
I had no
yeah,
idea they even had one.
Yeah, same here
yeah.
actually.
So this is actually an article that for release Paul Tapper, news and opinion guy for video games, TV, that kind of thing. If you're not familiar with him, so Netflix has been wanting to make games for a little bit now, and the big thing about this and why it's worth talking about is not only is it another, like, you can consider layoffs or closures in the video game industry. It was Netflix with all their money that we've had discussions about them throwing at random projects to see what sticks to a wall. They went out and tried to get an Avengers like level hiring spree in the video game space. So when you think about the industry and you think about the amount of people that work there, you have some names that are at the top, right? Some people that you recognize, some current like or past designers, video game developers, or different hats that they wear that are really well known. The big thing about this is they were looking to make a triple A multi-platform game based on an original IP. So already you're like, new studio, they want to make a triple A game, a team that hasn't worked together before, and it's a completely new IP. Like, that just sounds like things are stacked against it, right? That just sounds tough. Just to give you an example, a couple of the names that are there, they have the Overwatch executive producer, Shako Sunny was there. Halo creative lead Joseph Staten was there. The Coalition's Jerry Edsall, Blizzard and Bungie's Gavin Irby, and Sony Santa Monica's art director Rafael Grassetti. So some pretty big names from some pretty big properties and pretty big
I
teams
I
were
know
like
Raf
brought
Mercedes.
They got
together
laid
like an
off,
For a
Avengers
while.
gauntlet.
and they all got just washed by Netflix. They're like, no thanks.
Kind
So
of
that
reminds
it's
me of
just
like
sounds
Wayne
like this.
Gretzky. You know,
Close, yeah, maybe related, but those were some big names. You know, it was an internal studio that was codenamed Blue. It was meant to make this game, and yeah, they're shuttering it. And those were the kind of names that were attached to it. So they brought in all these big name people with like good ability, like knew what they were doing, but like jammed them into this Avengers like a Thanos gauntlet of talent.
Oh, speaking of,
oh no.
the Nick gets snapped out of his existence. What happened here?
Yeah,
There you go. All right, you froze for a second.
yeah, I did. It was just I faded. I got faded. Don't mind me. But it was a Thanos gauntlet of talent that they brought in, and again, just
Yeah.
kind of like stacked the odds against them. And Netflix was like, you know what? Before this gets any further, maybe before this is a Concord, pull the plug.
I wonder if whoever the producer was like, man, this is expensive. And they're like, I don't think we can, like, the way they saw like a news feed of like the way the industry is right now with all the bad news and people laying off, and they're like, we just hired a bunch of really hot heavy hitters, like, is this gonna make us any money? Like, and they kind of cut it off before anything it got too expensive, I guess. I'm just speculating, of course. So yeah, anything.
Yeah. And I mean, this
I didn't
is
even know that.
another streaming giant.
Yeah, I like. I do remember seeing like a couple games on Netflix, and I thought that was crazy. I was like, play games on Netflix? That's insane. But I never knew they
Yeah,
were
they're
going to go
starting
this
to like
crazy.
mobile game it a little bit.
Mhm. Oh, geez, I can only imagine like the monetization behind that. Blech.
Yeah. Well, they need more money because they have to put ads on our shows now. Every single tier has to have ads unless you're on the high tier. But this is kind of like mirroring what we're seeing with Amazon. Amazon, another, streamer in the space or streaming service that they have with, Prime Video, but they've bought into and closed a bunch of games as well. So it's just like these big companies, again, with the shareholders at the top, with the way that the industry is right now, are trying to break into these spaces, throwing a lot of money on it, and it's not exactly sticking.
Yeah.
Even when they has stuck a little bit, like, think Amazon is also, they're part of like the they take over like publishing in the US for like Lost Ark, developed New World. That
Yeah,
same company or team had jobs cut from it as well. Not just Crucible, stuff like that, but
I played it.
Lost Ark, New World, Throne in Liberty, a game that I've been playing a little bit lately too. Amazon Games has done the publishing in the US for that one and some of the localization.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, man, it's like I said, this is kind of I feel like we're reaching that point where um Atari was gonna burst the bubble, and so it's there he goes, and
Rip.
the industry is ready for a reset, and I honestly believe that like it's gonna be it needs to change for the better, and I think it's gonna happen. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when, right? So Nick did get snapped in, but here he is again.
Yeah, no, that was just Restream locking up on me. Sorry about that.
Okay. No,
Mm.
you're good. No, you're good. Yeah, you guys have any I guess like input on the Netflix thing? Because there's more bad news, unfortunately.
Not not much that I can. There's not much that I can really add to it. I mean, just as a whole, I've kind of been avoiding Netflix to begin with. So, anything going on with either the streaming service or their now defunct gaming division
Yeah.
That's true.
I
just
mean,
wasn't really on my
for
radar.
what Pepper and I were talking about earlier too, every once in a while when I'm looking for a new job, Amazon has a bunch of their like gaming studio or AWS stuff posted, and they're cutting jobs even with successes. Like it just doesn't feel safe
Yeah.
anywhere.
Speaking of cutting jobs and not feeling safe, the next article I'll post in chat right now, unfortunately, is Ubisoft's issues mount as 700 employees go on strike amidst studio shutdown.
That's
So it's
that's
rough. It's not looking good for Ubisoft at the moment. So as I'm reading this article, I want you guys to think of any, I would say like legacy Ubisoft game that you think that put them on the radar, because they've gotten so far away from where they started. So since its start in France in 1986, Ubisoft has been a titan of the gaming industry, creating some of the most well-regarded projects of all time throughout multiple genres and console generations. Up until the past few years, things were going smoothly for the company, and as they finally slowed down development on Assassin's Creed, so that each upcoming project would be as refined as possible. Unfortunately, the dam burst in October 2024 as Ubisoft is currently enduring one of the most tumultuous months in company history. Ubisoft is reportedly dealing with a flurry of issues, and these problems don't show any signs of stopping anytime soon. Firstly, the company's recent projects are not meeting the company's lofty sales expectations, despite the massive amount of content contained in games like Star Wars Outlaws and Assassin's Creed Mirage. Furthermore, the company refuses to bring back old mainstays like Rayman, instead of catering to the most casual gamers with its yearly Just Dance releases. The company's most recent actions might be the final nail in the coffin for consumers' trust, as fans growing tired of Ubisoft's troubling actions. So, yeah, that is true. There's been a lot of bombs lately coming from Ubisoft. The first one that comes up to mind is the Skull and Bones one. It's been a rough one. And then they released Star Wars Outlaws, and that underperformed. And I only can assume that game was expensive because of the license also. Um, and I think they spent more on marketing than the development of the game, or something like that, amongst the most marketing they've ever spent on a game at Ubisoft. So it's pretty rough, and I feel bad for these guys because it's like you're like going to work on a sinking ship, and it's just rough. Like you don't want to put your all into it if you know your company is making some bad choices. So sorry, Ubisoft guys, Ubisoft devs. I still love you. I mean, I like your games, but not recently apparently.
Yeah, there's a ton of games that I think of when I think of Ubisoft, but the one for me that really leaps out is when it like took a big jump for me beyond like the yearly things or like the couple things they were trying was Assassin's Creed 2. I
Mhm.
want to say that's when it like
Yeah.
really took off, when it really got too big for itself kind of thing, because that blew up. I mean, the writing around Ezio and then like the two spin-off games from that, Brotherhood and Revelations, uh both great games, and from there that kind of set Ubisoft in their way. We call them Ubisoft games for a reason. They're built on the same kind of framework. It's the same, like, icons on a map I have to collect, and the same kind of setup. Like, it all for me kind of like spun out from there.
Yeah.
Um, and especially their open world games. But I mean, there's still so many other games that are under their umbrella, and games that I remember playing, have like warts on them, but I still enjoyed them. Like, I loved Watch Dogs, and I was sad to see where that series went. Splinter Cell, obviously. I loved Rainbow Six Vegas as well. When that came out, and Vegas 2 especially, I remember playing. But like a couple people in the comments, like Jago was saying, like Beyond Good and Evil 2 is still in development, and I remember the. Yeah, it's just crazy.
Pep, do you have any Ubisoft stories or games that you love?
Yeah, actually, I was really big into CSI when I was younger, and they made. I recently remembered that they made a bunch of CSI games that I was huge into when I was younger, because I was so determined as a teenager to be like a crime scene investigator when I was younger, and so I played the heck out of those games.
Were they like puzzles, like where you like touch and go and like you match things, or like it's like Mist?
Gosh,
Was it like, were they like Mist?
Mist?
Yeah, have you played Mist? That type of game?
No.
Oh, okay.
Well, it is an old game, so
Yeah,
but
that's true.
but yeah, I've never played a CSI game, so I'm assuming there was a lot of like puzzle like related
Yeah.
things you had to
Yeah.
solve, right? Okay.
And of
I'm
course,
trying
you
to
like
look
saw
up.
like your favorite CSI characters. It was like really exciting. Watched
Was
that
there a
show when I
Lord
was way too young.
Fishburne.
Was there a Miami one?
Yep.
Oh gosh.
Yes, at Miami.
I think there was.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was one I watched all the time, so that's why.
Yeah, with the glasses where he'd like take off his glasses.
Yeah, that's the
Yeah.
guy.
or put them on.
Yeah, that's the guy. I'm trying to look for games in Ubisoft made before 1990. Oh, easy. Okay. I mean, you guys have any? I'll save mine for last.
Let's see, games before night.
Are you talking about the original TMNT?
No, I'm talking. This came out in 1989.
My God.
Before the analog time. Ace, you had something?
Well, I was looking at around 90, 91, and 92, and apparent. Oh wait, no, hold on. Yeah, Bomberman.
Wow, they made Bomberman?
Or were
Like,
they
Ubisoft had a hand in Bomberman on the Atari and DOS.
Really? Because I thought Bomberman. Oh, well, now Bomberman's owned by Konami. That's why I was like shocked to hear that. And I think they were like owned by like Sunsoft when I was a kid.
Mhm.
Right? Jesus, why do I remember this? It's terrible trivia
useless
knowledge.
information that
Useless
we had behind the
information.
counter. Yeah,
That's me,
it's like
yeah.
I recognize video game cover art for whatever reason from
Yeah.
alphabetizing so much in the store.
That's
Completely useless information I don't need.
Yeah. Speaking of useless information, the game that I was remembering that Ubisoft made back in 1989 was called Defender of the Crown. It first came out
Ooh.
in Armstead CPC, which is super old. I don't even remember what that is, but it's definitely older than the Amiga. But I played the Nintendo version of it, and it was it looked cool. It just didn't play good, kind of like Shaq Fu, right? So that's kind of the story in those retro games. It looks good, but doesn't play good. But yeah, that was the one that I think I even owned a copy of it because I bought it for like $2.
Oh, that's right. Ubisoft was also responsible for helping publish Evolution 2: Far Off Promise on the Dreamcast.
Oh my gosh, that is obscure right there. But geez, I want to supplement that last article with this next one. We'll keep it short. This one is The Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown Never Stood a Chance, because they were recently, they released that from Ubisoft as well. I'll link the article here in the chat. But yeah, I'll read it here in a second. Think about your first memories of Prince of Persia, because mine were not great because I was terrible at it. So, The Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown was never given a chance. One of Ubisoft's boldest and most experimental games of the last decade. This Metroidvania brought back the dormant series after 14 long years to critical acclaim. It was everything the company needed to begin tearing down the image of a factory churning out slop. That's good. But any hopes of a sequel were dashed this week when reports surfaced that Ubisoft had rejected the developer's pitch for a sequel due to poor sales, all in favor of a needless Rayman remake. So clearly, this person, James Trofton, does not like Rayman. So that's kind of sad because I like Rayman. There's more talking about how it didn't sell enough, and kind of like that. But the my takeaway from this article, because I don't want to beat down on Ubisoft that much tonight, is that Metroidvania, or what they call search action games, have been kind of a thing on Steam and PC. Like there's a lot of indie titles that use that formula a lot. So why would your $40 game be kind of stand out from the ocean of other search action games that are like less than that and probably more, certain people's speed? And that means like maybe the art is something that you prefer better, the aesthetic, the scenery, just like Pep, you said like you like gothic cozy games, right? Maybe like one of the Metroidvania games I can think of was what is that, Last Faith, right? Then and that had like a bloodborne kind of Metroidvania kind of appeal to that. So
What immediately comes to mind for me is Toho Luna Nights and
Mhm.
Record of Lotus War, Deedlit and Wonder
There you
Labyrinth.
go. And so to release like a game like this from a popular company, I think they were kind of dealt a bad hand, just because like the person said that they wanted to make something outside of what they normally churn out, right? But then people didn't buy it. So I feel like, man, is the gaming industry right now and its audience, are we to blame for this, or like go ahead? I think you're going to say something, Pep.
I Hollow Knight. I love Hollow Knight.
Well, there you go. And it's probably
Yeah.
less than $39.99, right? So that's what I'm getting at. And to for you to compete, having the name Prince of Persia is not enough for somebody to come back, like an old fogey like me, to be like, hey, I want to play the new one, because maybe I'm burnt out because I've been playing all these search action games for the last 4 years and they're less expensive and they're a lot cooler than this one. So I feel like even though the game is cool, because I did play the demo, and props to the team for adding Farsi in the language, because that's the language I played it in. It gave me a more authentic experience. But like, it's just like, also like, how much do they want it to sell? It's not a mainstream title, and it's not a AAA title either. So I don't know. It's just, I feel like we're just headed in the wrong direction. Unless you guys differ, I'd like to hear your thoughts.
No, I mean this has been happening for a while. This happened with Square Enix. Square Enix called Tomb Raider, the reboot, like Rise of the Tomb Raider, the second one, they called that a failure because it
Mhm.
didn't sell enough copies. That sold, if I remember right, at the time when they said that, like 2 to 3 million copies, and they said that didn't meet expectations.
Yeah,
Like that's insanely good for
yeah,
like industry as a whole. That's really good, and that was a fantastic game. I loved that game. But yeah, they
yeah,
called that a failure.
yeah. And that's the thing, right? Like, I think like these companies and their exorbitant like expectations for sales is really like ruining the experience for those making the games. Imagine if your team sold, created a game that sold like 2 million copies, right? But then the executives are like, well, we expected to sell 6. I feel like if we made a game that sold 2 million copies, I'd still be proud of my team, right? Like
Heck
we did a
yeah.
good job, so
Sure.
that's the rough part. And that's what I mean, how investors are kind of ruining video games, because they're putting a label on the game as like a dollar sign, right? And it's like they don't care if the game's good or bad, they just want to see how much it sells. So you sell trash, as long as it sells, you're going to keep making trash. I think hence why we're
Right.
in the situation we're in, you
Mhm.
know
Right. I will to play a little bit of the devil's advocate,
please.
because Jagos in the comments did say something as well. Publishers don't feel have worked on the successes. And one thing I will say is the industry as a whole is having a big issue right now because games cost so much to make. So
Mhm.
there are those expectations because the the cost of development has ballooned. As someone who's got to know like the development side just a little bit, I'm not, in the industry anymore. It is insanely expensive to make a video game nowadays, and they have to hit certain marks to be profitable, same as movies. So there is something to be said when certain expectations are met, then yeah, it's not a good return on investment. You can't keep investing in it. That's just basics.
Yeah.
It does cost way too much to make games. Now, the other side of that, what I will say is a lot of those costs are because of mismanagement, are super long development titles, and false expectations put onto the team. So, in a sense, it's kind of a little bit of both. It's, super high expectations, a little bit too high, but it does cost way too much to make games now. So, the scope, the vision, the production team that needs to be there to keep them on the rails and focused and having a clear, concise vision from the start is going to save everyone money in the end. So there needs to be a balance, but ballooning expectations, ballooning costs versus like what the number is at the end of the day is why we're having this conversation. So it's tough. It's not just a clear cut like, oh, they shouldn't worry about are the problem. It's a little bit of more nuance than that. But still, I agree as a whole, like something does need to change.
Yeah. It's like I said, they're marching to their doom. Jagos wrote, well, true, Square has decided to make Final Fantasy Remake a Sony exclusive. Meanwhile, no Parasite Eve or focus on smaller titles like Radiant Historia. I've always thought that AAA or big companies like Square Enix and Capcom and Konami, they should release one AAA title, take their time on it, right? Make sure it's good. And then they should focus on smaller releases like AA games that like doesn't require that much time to help fund these bigger games, right? But I'm not in the industry, so I don't know. But I feel like that should be something that they should look into instead of just putting all their eggs in one basket. Because yeah, making video games is super expensive. So on to our next topic, something a little bit more cheery. Capcom
Yeah,
has
please clear the palate.
Capcom has good news for Resident Evil fans on the PS5 because they are re-releasing ports of RE2, 3, and 7 available this winter, and no, they will all be $30. So if you've never played them, then
Very cool.
yeah, it is a good time to play them now in better resolution and performance.
Okay.
So yeah, RE2. I have these, just haven't played them yet. The end of story, right there.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of Resident Evil, 100%.
Well, I may have to invite you to play RE as I watch because I'm a coward. But
Oh my gosh! Literally, the first time I played Resident Evil Biohazard was in VR.
oh god, the Village one?
Yeah. No, the one before that, Biohazard.
Oh, Biohazard.
I think that was
Okay.
7, right?
Yeah.
7 or 6. I don't know numbers. Biohazard though is the one.
I don't remember either. Was it 7 Village? No, before Village was like regular.
Village
9?
was 8, so yeah,
Yeah,
Biohazard
7.
was 7.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah.
I have such a love-hate relationship with that game because of that experience. I had to be like half a bottle of wine drunk to be able to get through that because at some point your brain goes, this is real. On some level, this is real. And so you start having like actual reactions to what you're seeing and hearing, and you can't really hear what's happening outside of the experience. It's crazy. And I loved it, but I hated it at the same time. I am very happy that in these 7 and 8 that they've gone back to the more like quote unquote classic Resident Evil style, because for a minute there it felt very actiony, more so than scary, and I personally appreciate more scary than actiony, if that makes sense.
So 4 and 5 were definitely the more action oriented titles, and then with 6 with the with the 3 different campaigns, the one that definitely felt like the most back to basics, that kind of methodical sort of survival horror playthrough. I think it was the one with Leon, right?
I mean, just a lot of them have with Leon. 4.
But I
mean, he is in a few of them.
But again, in Resident Evil 6, in 6 you had 3 different campaigns you could play. There was the one with Jake, the one with Chris, and the one where Leon was the lead.
Correct. So the
And
way that the game was designed was the
mm,
Leon campaign was supposed to go back to the first couple Resident Evils.
yep,
The one with Chris was supposed to harken back to 5, which is more action oriented, and the one with Jake was supposed to emulate Resident Evil 3 Nemesis, because you're always being chased by Nemesis, and in that one you were being chased by a Nemesis also.
right.
So they wanted to combine all three things why you love Resident Evil and celebrate it in that game, but I think the tonal difference of the chapters didn't really hit well with everybody. So I think people were kind of confused, and like, first of all, if you start a game with Leon and then all of a sudden it becomes actiony, like with Chris, you're kind of like, what the heck is happening here? It's supposed to be scary. Now I'm fighting zombie soldiers, you know? So I get it.
Yep.
Um, Fun fact: did you know how the multiplayer worked in that, Pep?
No, I didn't play it multiplayer, so no,
Okay.
I wouldn't know.
So the game had in 6 had a unique multiplayer feature where if you're playing with your buddy, right, and there'll be a certain scene in the game where you guys will get separated, right, and then in the game, your that character will now meet another character from a different chapter. You will lose your gameplay with that friend, and you will end up be playing it with a stranger online because they're playing that character online.
What?
So
No.
you're like, yeah.
No
So they were trying to
way.
make it immersive, right? And then once like you clear that area, and then the story goes back to where you meet up with your character again, then your friend comes back, like when you're playing with them online. It was a very unique
That's
gameplay.
crazy.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know that, and I don't think a lot of people gave it a chance. Also, I don't like playing with strangers online, so that's probably why people didn't like it. So, let's be real here. Like, you're playing a game with your buddy, and you're like, you just disappeared, and some weirdo just showed up. This is awkward, you know. Like, that's kind of, I think, what happened there. But who knows? But yeah, if you guys like Resident Evil 2, 3, and 7, you can play that on your PS5. Coming pretty soon. And our last story and article for the night here, let me pull it up here in the notes, is called "The End of Review Bombing After the FTC Ruling." So this one's really interesting because we know review bombing exists and it can make or break video games, right? Helldivers was a big part of this. I mean, any time where there's a community that doesn't like a specific thing that happens in a game, it could be a design, it could be a certain design choice or whatever, or a feature, or a certain requirement for you to log in because you don't have a PlayStation account, right? People will review bomb your game on Steam. So the story goes the FTC issued a new set of rules covering reviews, and it may just outlawed review bombing in the process. As per FTC chair, the change aims to ban fake online reviews and testimonials. With 6 final rules, the commission hopes it will make users able to be more informed, decision based peer feedback. Most of the new FTC rules cover more traditional cases of review manipulation, but it is the first ruling that should raise alarm in gaming circles. Review bombing may fall under fake or false consumer reviews, potentially robbing players of an increasingly common method of leverage against studios and publishers. Leverage against studios and publishers, that's interesting, you know? So any thoughts on that? I mean, my personal experience with review bombing is I played Helldivers 2, and as soon as they made the PS like requirement to have the PlayStation account to have in Steam, a lot of people did not like that. Therefore, they review bombed and voiced their opinion on it. And I think it worked. Honestly, they took it away for a while, and they addressed it, right. So I mean, I don't know. What are you guys' thoughts and experiences with this?
So
I think having a verified purchase is bare minimum.
Yeah, bare minimum. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I think having a verified purchase should. Hmm. Well, I mean, here's the thing, because a lot of times, a lot of times, you know, a good chunk of reviews for games all tend to be more commentary from prospective buyers.
Mm.
People who might have been looking into a game, saw something in particular, something in particular as they were researching it, that it's like, either, you know, this looks like something I would buy, or I wouldn't buy it because of, X component of a specific title. Like that's a lot of more of what I've been seeing with, reviews and like commentary on Steam. So yeah, a like if you're going to actually be posting a review, then you got to have that verified purchase. And then there's of course, automated reviews that are posted as well, which I think having verified purchases for someone to be able to post a review would definitely help combat that.
It's true. Let's see here. Blue said, "It's really weird how DualShockers interpreted this as it also targets bottled or botted reviews that companies use."
Yeah, I mean the phrasing leverage against
Yeah,
developers and publishers. It's
that was
like
an interesting phrasing, right?
why pit the user base against against developers and publishers? Why do that when, more often than not, when a good, not only when a game is good, but when a good game sells, it's a symbiosis, it's a synergy. It's, the developers, not only making damn good product, but the player base, celebrating the product and also going, you know what? Here are the things that, kind of missed the mark here. Maybe this could be adjusted or patched out. And then the developers respond to that more often than not, in the best case scenarios by, actually taking that feedback into account and going, either let's patch this out, or here's the reason why it's in the game existing as it is. Providing that communication.
Yeah, and I think like there's a it there's I mean a community manager stands in between the developers and its audience also, and sometimes things can get heated between a community manager and the audience, right? Because we know there's a lot of people out there that are super toxic. They will just they wish death upon other people, even though it's like, come on, guys, what are we doing here?
Right.
Like it's not, that's not appropriate. That's not right. That's not a way to get what you want. So I think some people just do it because of the safety of the internet, right? But like at the same time, doing that kind of stuff doesn't really resolve anything, right? Outside of being like a toxic fan or whatever. So
Mhm.
to me, it's like, well, they're not really contributing to make a better game. They're just an outraged consumer, right? And like, I guess like where do people or the authorities go? Well, is this review legit? Is this message legit? Because many of the times I'll just say it's words on the internet. They're not gonna do anything about it, right? Because I don't know. And like what Diego said here, you know, he's even got a next level thinking. The weird thing about this is that when this comes around the same time as the Copyright Office not allowing an exception on games since they can't be used for recreational purposes, right? So there's like I don't want to go down a rabbit hole, but I feel like there's more beyond this than what we typically see beyond the surface, right? What's the purpose of this? Who's it serving really? Is it really serving the developer or is it serving the audience? But the words that was used in the article was very interesting to me because it definitely put like a position on it, a bias, right?
It probably put a bias on it. Yeah, just like any form of media, you have to
Yeah,
understand there is a bias. It's a person writing it, unless it's an AI bot, and then it's whoever told the bot what to spit out. Um,
have a bias.
my the two big things I take away from this article
Yeah,
are just one thing is something like this should happen sooner, and I'm concerned about how it will be enforced. There's no information on that. Is someone at the FTC is going to be spending all the time like burning through money to like figure this out? Like that's not going to help. As Blue was just saying, like Amazon is still inundated with
yeah.
reviews like this that fall into the same thing.
I don't want that job
And
for sure.
yeah, and so if that's not getting enforcement, how is this going to change anything? How is it just going to be wielded by an individual or a group kind of thing? There's not enough information for me to say that this is a net good, right?
Yeah,
The other side of it is this is a long time coming. My own personal experience was when for my capstone course in college, I wrote about because my background is communications. That was my major. And for one of my capstone courses, I had to take a look at ethics, and I chose ethics on YouTube. Now, this was at about the time that Dorito Gate was a thing, if anyone remembers that with Jeff Keighley.
I remember
Yep.
Like, this was before content creators on YouTube had to say that they were given a copy of the game or that it was a paid promotion. That was before any of that. None of that had to be on any of those videos. So people were giving their responses potentially having been paid for by companies to give a positive impression on it.
that.
And then eventually YouTube set up these rules, and now you see like paid promotion, or this may be a paid promotion on this video, or stuff like that. So it's good stuff like that's getting flagged, so you understand like there may be a bias here. So try to take the words for what they are, a grain of salt. Understand it's coming from a person, it's their opinion. So it's good to have this in a sense, right? To be able to
Yeah,
say like, oh, these reviews were done by a bot, or this was someone with an early access review copy, or this is someone who is connected to this kind of thing. It just gives that little bit of nuance to understand what you're reading. Media literacy is incredibly important. I wish
very good.
it
Yeah,
was more tied in. So good, but I'm highly concerned about how this is going to be enforced. And
correct. This
it's
is like
supposed
surface
to
level
be
stuff.
right, right. It's supposed to be for consumers. It can only be good for consumers, like reading through it. But at the same time, like if anyone can find a way around it, they will.
I
So we'll have to see on enforcement.
I think, like, for example, I know of if you review something in Steam, it says like this person was given a
Yeah.
copy, right? I think that's great. I think that transparency of that is like it skews your, like, now you can, you can like read that review like, oh, this guy was given a copy, so of course he's gonna want to like say good things, right? I love that. And I think each company needs to have something like that in their own platform. It doesn't have to be a blanket thing, right? Because, like, for example, if you don't want to use X, don't go on X, right? You use like Blue Sky or whatever, Threads, right? So not everybody has to adhere to it, but if you use a specific platform, yeah, there should be some sort of like some sort of regulation that where people keep track of that stuff, because some people are not that bright. Let's be real. Like, they're gonna go read that and be like, that everything you see here is true. They're not gonna look out for those small details. Like, this person was given a copy of this game. They just go, oh, it's a bad review. I know when I buy something, I immediately go to the 1 stars, right? That's what I
Mm.
do. So if and I feel like I'm a little bit more literate in media than most, but not the best still. But imagine the person has zero and they believe everything on the internet, like my parents.
Ugh.
So that, yeah, exactly. That's how I feel too, right? So
Right.
that's what this is for. Who this is for, right?
Hopefully, in the end, my guess is that this is probably just to focus on AI generation stuff and bot
Mm,
reviews. People
yeah,
are always going to find a way to review bomb or be able to mark that they've bought the game when they have it. Like, we don't know how it's going to be implemented. It's always going to be a thing people like to pile on. We could, like you said, don't want to go down a rabbit hole, but this is
yeah.
kind of what we're seeing right now with the Dragon Age stuff, with reviews that are coming out right now.
There you
There's
go.
some people that are posting reviews that are content creators that people follow and put a lot of like trust in, and that person comes out and said this game is trash, it's the end of BioWare. In the past, they've said they haven't played any Dragon Age games, or they
Yep.
played one game for 5 hours and didn't like it. So yeah, they're not going to have a positive impression, but people aren't going to know that. They're going to see the clickbaity title, they're going to see the thumbnail, they're going to see a ton of people writing the algorithm to the top kind of thing, instead of
Yeah.
being able to say like, hey, maybe I should check out this game for myself because I'm a fan.
Yeah. I my Before we move on to the next one, for the last thing for this article, I really wanted to stretch this idea out, because one of the things, my goals in this channel is to help everyone that is watches this channel and consumes it make better choices, right? And so, with that said, it is hard for somebody that has a budget to say, hey, I only have one purchase of video game for the next 6 months, right? I really want to play Dragon Age, right? And so, do they go, all right, do I buy it and risk it, right? And then see if it's good or bad, because I can't believe everything I see on the internet, right? This is why I think demos are important, because I think it creates a better, healthier environment, or betas, whatever, right? Like Ace here and I are going to play the Monster Hunter Wilds beta. It helps me with my purchase. Sometimes games, I don't even know how they feel and play until I get the demo, because from what I watched on the internet, there was no gameplay video, or it just feels different holding it in a controller. right? So I think that it's necessary for these companies to throw us a bone. Hey, I don't have a lot of money, and if you don't want a refund, right, you need to give me that demo for free so I can at least try it and then lure me in. So they know they should do that, but they don't make money from it. That's why they don't do it. So
It takes time to make a demo. Time is money, and it
mhm,
costs a ton of money to make video games. A lot of games and game development studios can't do that. It's not viable. It's the same that a lot of companies can't even release a vertical slice cinematic for E3 when E3 was a thing, because it costs way too much money to take their team off the project to do a simple demo. To
yeah,
us, it seems like that. It's not viable. I get what you're saying. Absolutely. I
yeah,
agree. It'd be nice to have a demo, but the way we consume our media nowadays has completely changed. That's why they do events to get people to come by to, like, again, with Dragon Age, they had a preview event where they brought in a bunch of content creators to try it and then, send out the news. It's more cost effective that way. And more people are consuming on YouTube now than ever before, right? And getting their news and their information and everything from there. So it doesn't make sense for a lot of them to release the games. A lot of devs still do, but with a lot of these bigger titles, it doesn't make sense. They're better off hosting an event or doing something that way.
yeah,
Again, it's not going to be one size fit all, and it's not to like be contrarian. It's just to say like there is a little more nuance to this. But
for
yeah, of
sure.
course, I'd prefer a demo. I miss the days of getting, a PC Gamer demo disc back in the day in my magazine kind of thing, just to try some
or
of these
the
games. That's how I discovered some games. Was
PlayStation
actually
Jam
getting my
packs.
hands on it. Yeah. Yeah, or getting like when we had when Xbox Magazine was a thing, like getting OXM discs with with demos on it.
Yeah, yeah, man. I mean, the idea of giving flying people out, showing them a demo or playing their version of the game in a controlled space to creators and stuff, versus just being a demo to the whole public, seems crazy to me. But I know it costs money. It's probably more. They know more than I do, so I'm not gonna guesswork that. But it just makes no sense for coming from like, hey, is it really worth saving money when you can potentially have a better reputation and
It
potentially
all
make
depends
money?
on costs.
Yeah,
Honestly, to run an event in your own studio where people come to you and have to pay for their own tickets costs you nothing. And you
yeah,
don't have to pull
I
your
understand.
entire dev team out to spend weeks making a demo that's released. And then people get their hands on that demo and say, hey, it's broken, it has bugs, all this stuff, and completely taint it. You have to spend extra time to make sure that's not buggy or it's the right vertical slice and all this stuff. So dollars and cents, man. It's
No,
it's
I
all
get it.
about it's all about
I get
weighing
it.
it. I get what you're saying, but at the same time, it's not clear cut. And to
Yeah.
me, having been an event manager as well, like it's so much easier to just handle it in house.
Yeah. And speaking of
That's what you
saving
pay your
money,
marketing team for.
speaking of saving money, we're going to move on to our next segment here called What's Your Price? Starring Mr. Blazing Ace Nelson and his experience with the Wayfinder video game.
Time for me to put it on pause.
Okay.
so, uh, a little a little tidbit for y'all. When I wasn't actively taking part in the conversation, I've been going through and playing through some more Wayfinder, playing through the different dungeons that have been coming up over the course of the game. Now, Wayfinder as a game its its fair share of rough going in not only its development but also its early lifespan, because before the 1.0 release this past week, which saw it releasing on consoles, it's been in early access on Steam, and Wayfinder itself started off actually as a free to play title, being co developed by Airship Syndicate and Digital Extremes. If either of those names sound familiar to y'all know what's been going on. For those of you that it may not be so familiar for, Digital Extremes is the company behind Dark Sector and Warframe.
Oh, there you go.
Mm.
And Airship Syndicate is the company that worked on League of Legends: The Ruined King
Ooh.
and Battle Chasers Night War, helmed by the Madrea brothers, Steve and Joe. Joe Madrea being the lead artist, who was also working at Vigil Games on the Darksiders games.
I like his art. Hence
Fant-
why I was like, this looks familiar.
right. Fantastic artist. Been rocking it since the 90s. But anyway, Wayfinder was originally being developed as as a free to play live service hero based action RPG, much like Warframe. But the monetization that Digital Extremes had wanted to try and utilize with Wayfinder, let's just say it wasn't as comparatively user friendly as what they've been doing with Warframe, and that led to a lot of backlash amongst other issues that had been cropping up with development, and eventually, you know, call it the rare Digital Extremes L, but they basically kicked Airship Syndicate to the curb and all but abandoned Wayfinder. So
Hmm.
for the last, I want to say, yeah, for the last year and a half at this point, Airship Syndicate had been reworking the entire game and pretty much converting it from from a free to play live service title into a standalone into a standalone single player and co-op action RPG. And that the results of that is what we've got here with Wayfinder. Uh, Current cost on Steam is $20. It was 25 on PlayStation Network when I picked it up. So that right there is, you're going MSRP. I can do, let me see if I can go ahead and try to condense a full backlog review into this for my, what's my price review. So let's start, let's start with, critiquing the audio visual points of Wayfinder. Again, the art style and the art direction. If you know Joe Madrid, if you know Battle Chasers, if you know Darksiders, then this is going to feel like you're stepping out into your own backyard visually. Uh, the environments look fantastic in that sort of, you know, animated, you know, not animated, what's the word I was going for? That sort of painted, comic, fantasy comic book style. So if you're looking for something that's, if you're looking for, fantasy that's, a little bit more colorful, not so dark, but still dark enough, then you know, Wayfinder's definitely gonna appeal to you on the visual front. Uh, Audio, you're gonna be hearing the clash of steel. It's a lot of sword play. You've got your gunplay with with certain characters. You know, Audio's nothing necessarily to write home about. It's atmospheric. It's what needs to be in this kind of game. So, audio is good. On the good side of serviceable, but the visuals are definitely what's going to stand out, especially with the character and item designs in the game. Uh, Looking at it from a mechanical standpoint, just you know hand feel. Once you've got the controller in your hands, or once you're playing it on mouse and keyboard, the game is snappy. It is intuitive. It's if you're looking for you know fast paced but still very methodical action gameplay, then Wayfinder's definitely going to be one to look into. As looking at the narrative of the game, I'm avoiding spoilers, but I'm gonna give you the basic concept. Uh, the world that you're in is pretty much a year into its post-apocalypse, and the characters that you are able to unlock over the course of the game were the heroes that fought on the heroes that pretty much fought as like the last line of defense to stem the tide. Unfortunately, in order to save what's left of the world, they died. And unlocking these characters is literally you finding their souls and using energy to help them literally rebuild themselves in the physical form. And one of the big parts of the game is actually finding their scattered memories around the different areas that you visit, as you know you reawaken not just their memories but their personality and various skills. It's like Vagrant Story, but only if Ashley dies at the beginning of the game instead.
That's rough.
It is rough. It's rough as fuck.
I have one question. How do
Dude.
I unlock the muscle mommy on the far left?
Oh,
You're asking the right guy.
How do I get that?
I have unlocked ye old muscle mommy, and here's the thing: like her particular item, her particular what you call it, awakening stone. You actually get it as a drop from fighting the mimics that you'll find in the dungeons. So yes, as you're
Oh,
looting treasure
no,
chests, you'll
mimics.
find mimics, and those things are intense.
No. No. Why'd
But
you have to say that?
but trust me when I say unlocking her is well worth it. Like this,
It looks like it.
like okay, one of the attacks that she has is literally, she takes that, enchanted gauntlet arm of hers, just boom, pop, pops the target square in the face. But if you hold the command down, she literally starts showboating with the crowd. You hear the cheers, and that powers up her follow up. And like early game, with this woman, I was already doing in the quadruple digits of damage.
That's so funny. That's the character I wanted to play. All right.
Muscle Mom is for everyone.
Is enough said. She's basically like, so in every game that I have been playing recently, I try to look for what I call my Potemkin. The solid standby where I can take their basic kit and then try to do as much unorthodox shit as I can with it as my main. And yeah, Senja is my Potemkin. She is mommy.
Yeah, I'll go back.
I keep seeing flashes of her, and I'm like, mm-hmm.
So if let's just say if you faced off against me in Street Fighter 6, I'm sure you can already guess who my main is in that.
Chun-Li, right?
Oh my God, there she is.
Not quite.
Those are some watermelon crushing thighs right there.
Oh yeah.
But
Collective thirst.
and Senja simping
Yes.
notwithstanding. All right, simping notwithstanding. Each of the characters on the roster is incredibly robust, even with the fact that they fall into like 2 or 3
Incredibly
different,
robust is definitely the thirst trap that we're in.
right. But I mean,
I gotta take a drink.
Yeah.
But I mean, even though they fall into like 3 different combat archetypes, with the War Master, the Survivalist, and the Arcanist. So your high speed gunners and long range, your Rangers, your spellcasters, and your warriors, basically. But even amongst those combat archetypes, there's a lot to do with each character, and their kit is just, it's phenomenal, and it helps bring out more of their character even before going into like unlocking the different memories to unlock the lore behind each of them.
Cool.
So with all that being said, let's go ahead and break it down to brass tacks real quick. I am currently 12 hours into the game. Because I only played it for a little bit, like a couple, over the last couple days between, work and work. But, now that I've been getting more and more time into the game, it's definitely something that I feel like I'm going to be sinking my teeth into for at the very least, the next few months or so. This is probably going to carry me through to the end of the year. And then in January, we've got Dynasty Warriors Origins.
Something to satiate the wait.
But I've spent 12 hours on the game so far. I have greatly enjoyed what I've played, and again, the simple fact that all of the stuff that could have been purchased with premium currency during its back during its early lifespan on Steam as a live service game, all of that was literally converted into unlockable items in games. So all of the cosmetics, all of the weapons, all the stuff that you could have previously gotten with premium currency that was just, stuff to make you look cool. Now it's got stats attached to it. It's got, drop, drop locations attached to it. It's basically what
His muscle mommy alarm went off.
Yep. It's basically what I hope would happen if, say, it eventually gets to a point where something like Warframe or the First Descendant, when the servers for that are, when the games are approaching sunsetting, my hope is that they eventually be converted to just full on, offline single or multiplayer experiences with just one price of admission.
How much is what's gonna cost Wayfinder? What's for the average consumer?
Uh, Again, average consumer, again, if we're looking at the current MSRP,
Yep.
this game released at $20 on Steam in the 1.0 release earlier this week. It's
Mhm.
$20 on Steam. It's 25 on the PlayStation Network because Sony
Nin-
wants
Sony,
their
yeah.
money.
You said you played it
And-
for 12 hours already?
Yeah, I've already gotten 12 hours into the game.
Okay, got it.
So
That's half a day. Those are rookie numbers. You got to get that up.
that's the plan. That is the plan.
All right.
But I mean, at this point, I've effectively spent $2 per hour of game time that I've put in,
Yeah.
and I have enjoyed every single hour thus far.
So you played it for 12 hours, right?
Mhm.
Is there more to play still?
There is definitely more to play.
And with
I
that
can double.
said, is there like a roadmap for this game beyond once you finish the whole game?
There is a roadmap for the game. A lot of it is still, very much dependent on, at the very least, how much support this game gets over its first couple of months in
Okay.
1.0. But there is a roadmap, and there is also currently what is basically a founders pack for Wayfinder. And this founders pack includes cosmetics based on the Vox Machina characters from Critical
Ooh.
Role.
There you go. Pep's
way.
ears perked up. Saw it.
So you get that supporter pack, you get the cosmetics, you support not only Critical Role, but you also help support Airship Syndicate, and that goes towards them adding future content to the game. There has been talk among the player base, talk of what else we would like to see as far as collaborations go. And there hasn't been a confirmation or denial, but needless to say, there is a big push to not only see more characters become unlockable or, more characters being added to the game, as well as more locales to fight your way through.
Mhm.
But, people have been asking, saying, what if you're actually able to, get the license and get permission from Vigil Games to actually bring in characters from Darksiders to Wayfinder?
That'd be cool.
Or, considering the fact that, it's an Airship Syndicate original, why not bring over characters from Battle Chasers?
There you go. I'm all for that. That's actually really good because characters sell games for me, and it makes me play games that I wouldn't normally play. Like when you said Vox Machina, right? Pepper's ears was like, "What? Excuse me?"
Mhm.
I'm the same way. You say you put a character in here from another game that I play. I'm more inclined to play it more. All right. So
Exactly.
If it's done well.
if it's done well, correct, not just like a skin or anything like that, for sure. It's not Fortnite. Okay, so Wayfinder, what other game do you think resembles this game that somebody has already played? So a game that's already been out.
Well, I mentioned the big two earlier. If you've played Warframe,
Mhm.
then much like I said, as far as the visuals go, if you've played Warframe,
Yep.
then you're gonna feel right at home once you get used to the mechanics in Wayfinder.
Okay.
If you've played the first Descendant,
Yep.
same same deal. You've got your different heroes that play through the game and unlock, and the three that you actually start with are the three at the front of the lineup right there: Wingard, Nis, and Silo.
Okay.
So you have your warrior, you have your spellcaster, and you have your ranger.
Okay. A couple more questions. I would say it's $25. Let's just go with the higher number, 25, right? You put 12 hours in. You say you paid about $2 an hour to experience this game. Yet there's more to come. So actually, that dollar per hour is actually going to drop, so which is good. So if you have a 15-hour, $15 an hour job, you work 2 hours, you're able to buy this game. Let's put that in realistic perspective, right? And you're saying you have 12 hours of gameplay already. I think
Mhm.
it's a good buy. Would you say that this game should have been higher or lower priced?
Honestly, I'd say it's right there in that magic price point range.
Okay. Would have you bought it if it was $39.99?
No,
Why is
I
that?
would not. I would not have picked it up at 39.
Why is that?
Uh, because I do have other games like that I've been playing, and af- after I heard about what happened with what happened between Digital Extremes and Airship Syndicate, I thought Wayfinder was just done for, so it fell off my radar.
Okay. Cool. So you played it for 25. I think it's a good price too. Yeah, you got your money's worth. What would prevent somebody from playing First Descendant and or Warframe over Wayfinder when they could do it for free?
Well, simply put, if you're sure, if you're playing Warframe or if you're playing the First Descendant,
Mhm.
those are free to play. But if you're getting to the point where you want to start, dealing, if you're getting to the point where you want to actually start picking up the cosmetics, actually,
The grind.
really going into your character customization, there's only so much of it that you can grind for in both of those games. And there's the premium currency, that even though the games are free to play,
Mhm.
you know, to get the experience that you want out of them, you are still going to have to, you're still going to have to open your wallet.
Does Wayfinder have a monetization behind it?
Wayfinder currently has zero monetization outside of that founders pack.
Okay, that's cool. All right, yeah, chat. I don't know if Wayfinder. I mean, I saw Ace play it on stream, and I thought it was really cool. Like the art really grabbed me, the action and combat really grabbed me. Right. I probably would not make a purchase currently just because it doesn't have a physical copy. Right, unless I'm wrong. I usually wait till they announce a physical copy, then I invest. But
Right.
I'd like to hear from the panel. What do you guys think? Would you pay $25 or would you wait? Would you play something else?
I
Yep.
think I would give it a shot. Yeah. I if it's like I've played quite a bit of Warframe.
Yeah.
So I think if it has that kind of vibe and it has like the roles and whatnot that you play with your friends, I think I would probably enjoy it. I would I'm a little worried that it sounds like it might get into the realm of Fortnite where they're bringing in just like random people from like different fandoms. And that to me might make it a little cheesy, but I don't know. We'll see.
The guest characters is not attractive to you as a feature.
Yeah, like I like the idea of the Vox Machina crew because it seems like that kind of fits the aesthetic that they're going for. But if they start getting into like the realm of just like really just misaligned stuff, I don't know. I'm like,
So,
that might kill the
And
vibe for me.
and
so
I can actually speak to that, just saying that, again, a lot of what's being discussed, back and forth, not just between the players, but between the Airship Syndicate staff that are actually looking through the Reddits. looking through the subreddits, a lot of the discussion is really just bringing in characters from other games that were either developed directly by Airship Syndicate or other games that were designed by Joe Madrea, so designed by the same artist. So it's definitely more trying to keep with that same alignment and at the very least that same visual aesthetic.
Good. That's good to hear. I like that idea also. Keep it in house, right?
Yeah,
Nick, what,
that's
what you got? Nope.
My budget is even more limited than normal, so for me it'd be a pass just at that price point. It's not my usual thing. I think I really dig the art and I like a lot of the sales points you made, but when I'm looking at like the amount of money I'm going to have to spend at the beginning of next year, the money I just spent on a release and kind of what I'm looking at, it's at that price is just something outside my realm.
Yeah.
I would say like sales price, I'm talking like I'm looking at you know, a Steam sale kind of price. Like if I can take a little bit more off it, I might be more inclined, especially if I have friends that I can play with.
fair
That's really
point.
the kind of big thing for me. It's just like when I
Oh,
have a group of people to play with, then I'll be a little bit more like free with my spending, right?
right. Oh, speaking of Steam, one more thing that I forgot to add that has been confirmed coming to Wayfinder, in particular on Steam. Mod support.
Oh, that's
Like
big.
official mod support. There are already mods that are actually being developed and tested on the game with actually incorporating five player parties.
Okay.
I mean normally co-op goes up to I believe co-op goes up to I think it goes up to 4. Like I
Four,
haven't
four
I
makes
haven't
sense.
tested it because I've been playing offline and solo. But again, different types of challenge runs, and again, different types of, party size configurations, just getting in and straight up modding the game, that is going to be officially supported.
Yep. Cool. All right. So final verdict. I would say if I had currently, but the only thing stopping me from buying the game is the physical copy because I am interested in playing it. I like the art. I like the gameplay. But I want physical. I want to support physical. That's just my stance.
Mhm.
$25 is great, right? It's not a full price. It's not even double A price, to be honest. It's a good deal, for the type of game it is. Pep, you said you would buy it for 25.
Yeah, I think kind of piggybacking off of what Nick said. I think as long as I had people to play it with, because that's kind of the vibe for me as well. So
Yeah,
I want to have you know
that is
friends
one of
along the
the
way.
that is one of the determining factors of why people buy video games. Also, if their friends are playing it, we learned at Reset, or at least I learned at Reset. So
Well, so many of the games nowadays too are online multiplayer service oriented or some kind of community attachment kind of thing. It's just we're all connected now. There's not a lot of
yeah.
single player experiences, and the ones that are single player experiences, the ones that you're going out there and you're buying them, like God of War or stuff like that.
hmm
Right.
So, like Nick, you said pass. What
Yep.
would you spend your $25 on instead?
Oh
If
my
if
gosh,
you were
dude.
given $25 to buy a video game,
I'll be honest, gas. I think gas money, man. 25 if I was talking about spending that kind of money. This is just personal preference. It's not like a
yeah,
reflection
that's,
on
that's
the pitch or anything, but 25 for me is a couple months of Xbox Live and I've got Game Pass for
there you
something like
go.
that. So if something like this came to Game Pass and I had like the cost of my Game Pass membership, the only thing I downloaded that
Mm.
month was Wayfinder. Let's say Game Pass Ultimate. I'm spending
hmm
$15 on. I would do it for 15.
Yeah. I love that because now you're playing it smart. So there's a chance that this may show up on Game Pass also. So yeah, I think that's a smart idea, and I think that's why I wanted to do what's your price review, and I'll focus more on like better decision making, just because, like I said, we are stretching our dollar here, and I want to make sure that we do make better choices. And having a diverse panel will also help with that if you're on the fence about it. Okay. But the I know we're going a little bit long today, but I do want to go back and cover this for our recommendations for the night. And this is courtesy of Miss Pepper Potts. She recommends the ultimate RPG character backstory. I mean, I'll let her talk for herself, but she and I play D&D, and she is all about it. So please, Pep, tell us a little bit more about why we should buy this.
Yeah, so that's kind of my niche. I am a huge tabletop person, and I deeply, deeply enjoy the roleplay aspect of TTRPGs. So I really like to develop very diverse and dynamic characters to play at the table because it's fun for me, and I know it's fun for the people at the table. So I love this book. I have my copy right here. This author, James D'Amato, uh, he makes multiple different books, including one for Dungeon Masters as well. He also has created a set of cards for in-game role play questions. So when you're sitting around at the campfire and you're doing your short rest, questions to ask each other to get to know each other better, or simply to develop your character a bit more. So I love this book. There's aspects of pretty much every level, like at every level, what your character cares about, from level 1, which is just, hey, I need to go get rid of some rats in a basement, to the higher levels, 10, 14 and on, which basically your character could almost fight God, right? So things that would matter to that character, they cover in this book as well. So whether you're developing a character that's barely got his bootstraps pulled up, or he has a mythical weapon and is fighting a deity, it kind of has everything covered.
Would you say that this book is good for somebody that first has never played D&D before? Should they read this book first and then play D&D, or should they have a little bit of experience playing D&D first then buy this book?
I think that it's a difficult question to answer, because I feel like, me personally, right out the gate, when I started playing D&D, I had I feel like I had a different mindset about how to develop my characters that was very aligned with this book. For somebody that's more mechanically inclined, they might be a little overwhelmed. So if that is you, if you're someone that is more of a, like they say, the gamer type, I would say sink your teeth into the rules and the mechanics first, and then kind of branch out from there. Create a character that is like you, but has some differing defining traits as well.
Gotcha.
And then sink your teeth into stuff like this.
Elysian Paradox says Pepper is stellar at fleshing out her characters. Those cards are a lot of fun. Awesome. Got a fan in the audience. Would do you think that this book would be a good writer's tool also? Like, if you were creating a
Yes,
story, making a character in a story, would this book help you with that as well?
absolutely. I do, because there's some the way that he talks in some of his exercises. I remember sitting there and thinking, if I was writing a book and I was creating a character, this would also be useful for that. And for such a thing, I would recommend his book about world building, which touches upon all of that. Gives you a whole world for your character to explore and really, really build it up.
Right on, right on. I personally have not read that book, but I think as I create my character in D&D, because I do play part time, um, I don't know. I do, like you said, I do kind of gather things from my own personal element and I translate them to a character in a fantasy world, right? Also, some inspirations from outside sources that if I were to make a hero, what kind of hero would I like? And usually we try to put ourselves into these characters, but there's also a lot of features from other places maybe we haven't experienced yet, and that can be found in this book.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's a very creative tool to have. How does this relate to video games? I would say if you're creating games on RPG Maker and you want to write a story, this is still useful for that as well. We talked about RPG Maker in a different episode, and this could be your inspiration to make your character if you're stuck, if you have writer's block, or kind of like what other great minds are thinking. So I appreciate the recommendation. So currently, right now, it is $9.49 on sale from $14.99 using the Amazon affiliate link that is on the QR code there. Any purchases made by this QR code on this link will go contributes towards the stream. So if there you go, guys, have that and you can save some money and get a discount. So, any other thoughts or any side notes on the book, Pep, or anybody in the panel?
Well, again, just the moment you brought up, like the moment you brought up, whether or not that book would be really helpful as far as like, actually, designing characters outside of a tabletop setting,
Mhm.
I was legitimately thinking the same thing. Like,
Yeah.
it's kind of like, it's like a good, it's like, you know, as an artist and a character designer, I'm always looking at different reference materials. So I'm looking at stuff like how to draw manga. I'm looking at, stuff like the rather sizable stack of manga I have sitting on my bookshelf next to me. And I'm looking at various, visual references. But deep down, I'm a storyteller and I get into character design from, the lore standpoint as well. So it's like, why does a character look a certain way? How do they interact with the world that they're being placed in? And that book right there looks like it would be the perfect tool to help you, like you said, get around, if you've got a bout of writer's block, crack that sucker open, read it, read a few chapters, see what sparks.
How thorough is it, if you don't mind me asking? Like, do you see that there's a lot of different archetypes in there? Like,
Oh, it is very thorough. The questions and the exercises that they have, like I found myself sitting there going, man, my character isn't even developed enough to be able to answer this question.
oh,
So
okay,
I
that's
will
cool.
I'll put like a little, like you can see I have like a little sticky on there. I put that there because I'm like, I want to revisit this later once this character is more developed and I can answer that question because it's so good. And it's not just questions, but it's like literal exercises,
Yeah,
quizzes and surveys and things like that. There's even one that's like, it gives you a bunch of different NPCs and it's like, would you smash or pass this NPC? Like stuff like that. There's like there's like a little intermingling of more intense questions and things and then stuff like that to kind of give you that variety.
That's rad.
yeah. And I
Yeah,
think for
great. I love it.
950, that's a lot of value right there. Because
Yeah.
that's good. All right. Yeah. Anything else before we close out? No, any ahas for tonight or anything like that aside from the ruined world of video games that we live in? Apparently, Jesus.
Yeah, right. Well, I mean, that was the only scary thing. Happy Halloween.
That was a good one. I like that one. I
Right.
like that. All right, guys. So yeah, I appreciate you guys checking us out. That's a wrap. That's another episode of the Gaming Academy. Thanks for tuning in. Remember, we're here every week discussing the best and the latest in gaming. Don't miss out. Be sure to like, subscribe, smash that like button, all that fun stuff.
Oh
Follow
my
us
God.
on all the platforms, right? Um, but tonight I'll leave you guys with an inspirational thought from another one from the master Shigeru Miyamoto. If you guys don't know who that is, that's the creator of Mario and Zelda. Okay, so he says, "quotes The best games are the ones where players create their own story, their own adventure." That's pretty straightforward, and it's kind of relevant to just what we recommended.
I
So
see what you did there.
yeah, you like that? So go out there, make your own story, and keep exploring. Until next time, game on. I appreciate you guys as always. Thanks to everybody that showed up on the panel tonight. Pepper, thank you so much for showing up. I appreciate you. I owe you big time.
Yeah.
I really want to have you back on for Dragon Age. I'll make that happen somewhere, a way or form where you get to play it. I'll make it happen. Okay. Ace, thanks for the awesome review. Nick, love your insight as always. Till next time, guys. I
Nick,
appreciate you
you're
guys.
here.
Yeah.
Cool.
No, don't sell yourself short, man. You know some stuff that I wish I knew. I'm telling you. So, and I think
That's why we have a panel.
yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
So, till next time, Tuesdays at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Appreciate you guys always.